resolutions when we get to that point of our meeting. We now take up special item 6A, election of City Council President. Mr. Hosse.
Thank you, Mayor Steele. It's my privilege to nominate Ryan O'Neill for Council President.
And Mr. Lanfear.
I second.
Any further nominations? Then your ballots are being distributed to you presently.
We have to make a motion to cease nominations.
Is there a motion to cease nominations? Mr. Hosse
I'd move that nominations cease.
and Mr. Lanfear.
I second.
Any discussion?
Please vote. Motion adopted. Congratulations, Ryan.
Congratulations to Council President Ryan O'Neill, and thank you to outgoing President Jack Sheard for all of your excellent work this past year. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Lanfear.
I move we approve the consent agenda A through B.
Mr. Brown.
That motion.
Any discussion?
Please vote. Motion adopted.
Public hearings. 8A, public hearing on acquisition of utility easement, 611 Cary Avenue, NMN Express, Inc. Mr. Schmitz, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a 20-foot easement for a 24-plex. This is located between Custer and Broadwell on Fadley. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
I move
Oh,
we,
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we need to announce.
Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this item? If not, public hearing is now closed.
Please proceed, Mr. Brown.
I move we approve 2025 TAC 419.
Mr. Lanfear?
I second.
Any discussion?
Please vote. Motion adopted.
Our first resolution is now 9D, number 2025-422, approval of memorandum of understanding between the City of Grand Island and the Nebraska Game and Parks Foundation regarding Camp Augustine. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. So a little background. On June 27th, 2023, City Council approved Resolution 2023-164, authorizing purchase of Camp Augustine from the Overland Trails Council of the Boy Scouts at $12,500 per acre. On November 6, 2023, Grand Island purchased 156 acres for approximately $2 million. In cooperation with the Nebraska Game and Parks and Game and Parks Foundation, the attached memorandum of understanding has been developed to prepare the site for purchase so that city can pass off stewardship of this property to the state park system. In furtherance of the spirit of the memorandum of understanding, as the state takes its next steps, the city has started the process of securing necessary appraisals and other work needed to ensure the property is ready for acquisition. When the state is ready to complete the purchase of Camp Augustine, the City Council will be asked to approve the final sale. The MOU represents the city's commitment to work in partnership with these final transition steps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, did you want to speak on this item?
Well, I would just commend the city staff on its vision to bring this forward in cooperation with the Nebraska Game and Parks. And I was just sitting there reminiscing a little bit. I can remember when there was a lot of acrimony about actually widening South Locust Street and removal of those trees going south. And now we'll look at what that provides for a corridor to our state, Nebraska State Fair, and everything that goes with it. So, boy, this is a win-win. Great memorandum of understanding, which I think would meet our community needs, and also signals maybe added reinforcement for our residents to also aspire to journey there with a hike and bike trail and other ways, as well as visitors that potentially would be there to come and enjoy Grand Island. So I appreciate the leadership of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sheard.
Thank you, Mayor. I proudly move that we pass Resolution 2025-422.
Mr. Brown.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? Mr. Lanfear.
I'm always the troublemaker, but I want to know what this state's going to do with this. The only people on this council that I know that camp are you and me, Mayor. And we've been camping for 40 years. Yeah, I know. But what you have out there is a real gem. The last time I camped in a nature area was, I don't know, 20 years ago down in Arkansas. You have a natural area. I do not want to see them go in and destroy it. You have 6 cabins. Those are like the gold standard of camping. You have a chapel out there. You have an area that could be used for receptions. I do not want to see the state come in and just plow everything down. It could be done as a nature area. That's my concern. That's it.
And I don't think that that's the state's intent. Mr. Swenson, can you address the vision for Camp Augustine and also the other state land, including Mormon Island, and just fill in some information gaps for us?
I'd be very happy to, Mayor. Mayor Steele, council members, pleasure to be here this evening to represent the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission and speak on behalf of this great project. My name is Jim Swenson. I am the Deputy Director with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission located in Lincoln, Nebraska. So great questions, Doug, and very sensitive to the items you have brought forward. We have definitely had discussions during the initial design phases of preserving as much of that area as we can for good conservation and education purposes, as well as development enough to allow us to finance the operation as well. That's going to be one of the big challenges that we have coming to us. So, you know, what we've looked at initially is some campgrounds because there is very high demand for camping opportunities. And that's consistent, of course, with the way the property was utilized previously by the Boy Scouts of America. We look at a lot of day use type programming, again, reflective of what might have happened on that landscape over the years, and great opportunity for people to attend events there and then come into the community here for food service items, overnight lodging as well, and other fun activities. We're looking at doing some shooting sports activities there, again, consistent with what Boy Scouts of America may have offered there previously, some fishing opportunities, and certainly taking advantage of the great kayaking opportunities that exist there with the thread of the stream that comes through there. So we're pretty excited about it. We do have some cabin development in there because there is high demand in our state park areas for overnight lodging opportunities, and certainly I'll be supportive of some of the major events that occur in town. So we'll be very tasteful in our approach. We do have to be sensitive to making this a cash flow opportunity for us, so all those things will come into consideration. But we've been long underway, having good discussion with members, with the mayor and other members about what that landscape should look like, so.
My thought was, you don't have many really nature trails. This is basically old-time Nebraska. You have a nature trail, you got a swamp out there. You have all sorts of critters, birds, snakes, possums, raccoons, you know. It's a nature area, and there are very few of those left in this country. I would hate to see you just mow the grass down, and I understand why you would, but I hate to see it. I'm done.
Sounds like a pretty wild place. You'll be very pleased to know that we're sensitive as an agency to what the most popular requests are for outdoor recreation opportunities now in Nebraska. Trails, nature trails are very high on the list of priorities. And part of that property out there is actually mitigation ground that we have acquired. So we'll have limited opportunity to develop it beyond much more than a conservation trail, interpretive trail. So that'll stand up as a perfect example of what you're talking about.
And also, a large component of Nebraska Game and Parks is nature education, correct?
That is correct. So it's in fact, tomorrow I'll be speaking at a conference on that very subject. It is certainly an important element in our agency.
Thank you, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks. And thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Sheard?
Thank you. Doug, I think what they've just said maybe wraps that up, but the idea that we're going to bring more people to Grand Island to actually experience the things you're asking for makes this, in so many ways, a home run. I think win-win was a great way of putting it. This is one of those things that I think reshapes Grand Island forever. Mayor, how many did you say? 8 state parks?
Yeah, it's my understanding, they're nodding, there are 8 state parks in the entire state of Nebraska.
And they take great care of them, and they do wonderful things. I am so excited to say that Grand Island's got a darn good chance of being number 9 and maybe the best, just the best. And when I think about, I see somebody in the back corner back there nodding his head, the love and care that the Scouts put into that land for so long, and the fact that it's going to stay as a nature-respected place for youth to explore and have those adventures like I did at state parks growing up. I think the Scouts will probably take great pride in knowing that that tradition is going to continue on that land forever. So I'm so excited.
Please vote. Motion adopted.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I appreciate you making the trip and all the hard work you've done. We will now take up 9A, approving update of the Jackrabbit Run fee schedule. Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Mayor. So during the budget process, we usually approve all the fees for the city. The golf course was going through a renewal of the contract with Landscapes Unlimited, so we're bringing those to you tonight. Sedona Manful is here. She's with Landscapes Unlimited. She's the golf manager. And with your permission, Mayor, I would like to invite her up to maybe highlight those fees
Certainly.
that they're recommending. Thank you.
Good evening. Nice to see you all again. We're excited that Landscapes Golf Management has renewed its partnership with the City of Grand Island, and proud that we're going to be managing Jackrabbit Run through December of 2030, at least, hopefully longer. But we're really excited about that. Here tonight, just wanting to speak about our rate fee proposal for the 2026 season. Unfortunately, we are proposing a rate increase. It's not something that we want to do, but unfortunately, with the rising costs in all aspects of the business, the increases are necessary. Minimum wage is increasing to $15 an hour come January 1st. Since LGM took over back in December of 2020, minimum wage was $9 an hour. So it's been a significant increase, has impacted just the hourly pay by about $125,000 per year. We have additional continued increases in chemicals, supplies, repairs, parts, food and beverage, insurance, utilities, et cetera. Both pass and round price recommendations are made after researching both of our main competitors' current pricing. Both Caro and Indian Head, who would be considered our main competitors for golf, they have different business models than we do at Jackrabbit Run. We pride ourselves on having leagues and running some tournaments, but also having a lot of tee times available for public golf because we are the city-owned course, we're a public course, and that's what was expressed to us by the city council, that the desire for Jackrabbit Run to have that in their business model. The budget submitted for fiscal year 2026 was based on the rate increases that we're proposing. Hoping that they get approved tonight, otherwise we may have to go back and I dread going through a budget process again. So I guess, just to be honest, I mean, we need to choose a path. Okay, so if the goal of Jackrabbit Run is to be well-maintained golf course that provides excellent customer service and a quality experience, while breaking even financially, we don't feel that's even remotely possible without taking price increases. If the goal is to always be the least expensive course in the area, I'm afraid there's going to be some significant sacrifices that'll have to be made that will be detrimental to the course, the quality of the experience, and taking huge steps in the wrong direction, which I don't think are going to be received well by our patrons. We've worked really, really hard the last 5 years and done some amazing things at Jackrabbit Run, and I just don't want to see us go backwards. We are already a little bit behind in selling our passes. Generally, we start doing that in November. As Todd mentioned, because of the RFP process, that kind of delayed that a little bit. And then not being on last city council agenda has delayed us an additional 3 weeks. So that is having an effect on our bottom line at this point. We've rolled back some marketing that we had put out there. We were hoping to start selling passes on Black Friday, and so we've kind of had to roll that back. And so we're hoping to, with approval tonight, we're going to be able to start selling passes the end of this week, as long as I can get everything in the system all ready to go. I just respectfully request that the council approve the rates as proposed, and welcome any questions or anything that you might have as far as rates or anything.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill.
I move that we approve 2025-401.
Mr. Hossie.
I'll second the motion.
And Mr. Hossie, discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked this item to be pulled from the last council agenda because this is the only time that the council literally gets to talk about it. And so what my observations were when they came in front of us the first time, there were just red flags that I needed to follow up on. And so I'm supporting it tonight, although I don't necessarily agree with 100% of it, but I don't have to. But I want to point out the things that I wanted to bring up, and I have had conversations with Justin Arl, Landscapes Division Manager in Lincoln. And the first one I want to talk about, just the rate increases. I understand the minimum wage, and that was a driver, but in 2 years, we've raised our 9-hole rates 22%. In the last 7 years, 51%. In the last 13 years, we've raised them 73%. So prices are definitely going up, and per the cost. This is one of the greatest golf courses in Grand Island. I mean, this is a fantastic course. But another thing that I was looking at, when I was looking at negative trends, one of the first red flag that went off in a negative trend was the number of junior golfers was going down 33%. we want to support junior golf because they're going to be the next adult golfer. They're going to be the next senior. And so I want to know what's causing the trend. And unfortunately, in the middle of a council meeting, it's hard to have that conversation without pulling it from the agenda and seeing it again. So in talking to Justin, he thinks, he's assured me that there's some fallacies in the numbers. The numbers on their reports aren't reflective of what's really happening. So I've asked Justin to help communicate better because I look at their monthly reports and I'm looking at what's going on with the junior golf. And so I see a 33% drop in junior golf participation. I'm assured from Justin it's not there. So we're still working on that one, but that was a red flag to have that conversation. The next thing that I noticed with the kids is there's a line in our golfing fees it says from age 10 to 15 if you're going to golf with a paying adult. So I had 2 grandkids with me over the years, and I took them through golf lessons out there, and I've had them go with me when I golf. Well, when they were 6 years old, the best that they'd probably do is chip up and putt. They're not golfing, they're not driving the fairway, they're not hitting the fairway, they're just maybe chipping and putting. You're trying to spark some interest. Well, we're moving that age to where they have to pay from 10 down to 6. I don't think that's the right idea. I don't like a 6-year-old having to pay for golf. I mean, if I have a 6-year-old grandson with me and he wants to golf and I'm trying to spark an interest, I'm okay that he goes with me and chips on a couple of holes. He's only going to do it a couple of holes. Even though it's discounted, I just thought it was too much. By the time they're 10, I agree. They can golf 3 holes. They can golf 6. Maybe they can golf 9. But by the 10, they actually can start swinging. And I'm okay at 10-year-olds paying. But below that, I disagreed with that one. Then I looked at the complimentary rounds. I have been around this golf course for the whole time, 40 years, however long we've been doing it. And before we went with landscapes and Don Cruz was golfing, our complimentary rounds were a dozen or 2 dozen. I mean, you could count them on your fingers and toes, maybe. When landscapes went in year 1 in 2021, there was 395 rounds of complimentary golf. Well, I'm looking at that and I don't necessarily understand the number, but it's no big deal. Well, it has been escalating every year. So go 5 years forward. Last year it was 1,800 and some odd complimentary rounds. My question is, if we need to raise the revenue, what's this? What's driving the complimentary golf? So I've had those conversations with Justin. Part of it is their employees at Jackrabbit get to do that. Justin sees that, he assured me that there's excessive use there, and that he thanked me for bringing it forward. He's now seeing something, and he's going to take it up with Sedona. I'm looking at these trends, and I don't know who else is. If I don't look at them, I don't know who else is. And so the last thing, their pricing model to me seemed to be, where Indian Head's pricing is, plus a little bit from their 25 rack rate. But we're not Indian Head. First of all, I think we have a better golf course as a municipal course, but we don't have the same clubhouse. We don't have the same cart barn. We don't have the same paved parking lot, and we don't pay property tax where they do. So there's some reasons why our expenses should be a little bit less because of the facility, because of the taxes, and so there might be a real reason why our rates should be a little bit less. And when I look at in this last year from 24 to 25, our revenue per round went up $4.78. That's a good increase per round. And that could have been from concessions. It could have been from a number of things. But our expenses went up $6.48 per round. So I'm thinking, when I'm looking at rates, not everything is solved on the revenue side. Not everything is solved by higher fees. So I think it's time to make somebody just ask the question, is there any room to lower the expenses? So I'm looking at both sides. I've looked at it all. I'm in a conversation with Justin. He's been very wonderful to work with. Sedona has been wonderful to work with. But these are my observations from the council side, because I'm here representing taxpayers, and I just want to make sure that somebody's looking at these types of things.
Mr. Sheard.
Thank you. You know, Chuck, I saw that same six, that was the thing that jumped out at me. I don't look at all the numbers you do. You are the watchdog of all, and I appreciate it. But that down to six, that was something that caught my eye. So how much more are we going to make off of 6-year-olds golfing? Do we have numbers that show that that's going to be, like, helpful?
So if it's okay, I might go ahead and I was taking some notes as Chuck was talking, and then that is part of the notes that I took. So as far as junior rounds are not down. Junior rounds are actually up. What you were looking at on the financial report was a line item of people that come and golf, and they have not a membership, but we have like a public rate, and we have the pass holder, and we have seniors, and we have juniors. So that junior line item that you were looking at is not by any means fully encompassing what we do for junior golf. That line item of senior golf actually was our biggest increase in rounds. It was like over $110,000 over like our other player types. So another thing with junior golf is that there's a program, it's across the nation, but it's called Youth on Course. So any kids, basically from any age, the time that they can pick up a club until they turn 19 years of age, can go online and they can purchase a membership through the Nebraska Golf Association. Costs them $25, one time for the calendar year. And then they can visit courses across Grand Island, across Nebraska, and actually across the entire United States, where they get to golf as many holes as they want in a day for $5. So the courses that participate in Youth on Course, which is Jackrabbit Run, Indian Head also participates in that. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure if Centura Hills does, but numerous courses, again, all over the state of Nebraska, are making youth golf affordable to everyone. I had Youth on Course for my son, raising him as a single mom. Golf's expensive. And to pay $25, $30 for him to go out and golf around, I mean, it wasn't happening. But by golly, I made sure that I paid that $25 membership, and I could give him $5, or he could get his own $5 and he could golf. We don't generally have a lot of the younger kids, as Chuck mentioned, that are going to come out and they're going to golf a full 9 holes. They're going with mom and dad, or they're going with their grandparents, and they're going out on the course. And they're basically, like you said, putting, chipping. And so that rate is on the sheet, but honestly, I can't even remember a time when I have charged anybody under $10 to go out and golf. But what we do is we do highly promote this Youth on Course program. So if we can get the $550, and then we also get a supplement that's sent to us from Youth on Course that kind of helps us to recoup a little bit more of those green fees. The other thing to keep in mind, and nothing against children, but when parents or grandparents are golfing, the 6-year-old's got the putter on the green or in the carts, or we maybe are finding a little bit of mischief, which I think is natural. And there are some costs associated with doing some repairs. Again, very focused on promoting youth golf and want all the kids out there, but we find that promoting Youth on Course really is what gets them out there for that. So I just wanted to kind of clarify, our youth rounds are up significantly. Now, as far as the complimentary rounds go, those number of rounds, providing complimentary golf to employees at Jackrabbit Run is a Landscapes Golf Management benefit. So everybody that works at Jackrabbit Run is an employee of Landscapes Golf Management. And that's one of the benefits of working there. And Justin and I are going to have some discussions going forward because we have opened that up a little bit more about that. But again, having free golf is a great recruiting tool and helps me to hire those excellent people and retain them that are providing that excellent customer service. Also in the comp rounds are gift certificates that we provide. I made 2 gift certificates today, one for Northwest High School post-prom party and one for senior high's post-prom party. So if somebody requests a gift, they want a donation, right? I mean, who doesn't want a donation, right? They're selling candles, they're selling cookies, they need a cash donation. Well, we can't do cash donations, so what we do is we provide a gift certificate. So when those gift certificates come back in, yes, they're getting complimentary rounds, but I tell you what, those people are because they're not spending money on golf or cart, they're spending money on food and beverage and buying merchandise, and so we get the ancillary spending off of that. So that's kind of for complimentary rounds. The other thing, when like you were referring to when Don was at the course, it was in Don's contract that if he provided complimentary rounds, that would null and void his contract, because I have a copy of the contract that was left there when I left. The only person that was allowed to golf for free at Jackrabbit was PGA Associates. So, and I don't know, without a point of sale system, everything was on a paper tee sheet. Like, I can tell you, I mean, you saw the report, exactly how many of each kind of rounds I'm doing. I don't know with paper and pen if that necessarily was the case. As far as our pricing model goes, I guess my argument would be, I understand, I mean, Indian Head has a lot nicer clubhouse than we do, and they have more space than we do. But that's also maybe a reason why we need to be charging a little bit more. And we've had numerous discussions here. I've been in front of council numerous times. We've talked about 50-year-old irrigation system. We've talked about a 50-year-old septic system. We've talked about not being hooked up to city sewer and water. We don't have a cart barn. I mean, the clubhouse is a double-wide modular that's been added onto twice. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but the infrastructure challenges that we have at Jackrabbit Run are massive compared to other area courses, is what I would put out there to you. And no, we may not pay property taxes, but we do pay a significant money to the airport for the land lease every year, right, which was renegotiated, but that is money that has to be paid. And also with the infrastructure that we have, it costs us more to keep that up. It costs us more for when things break down, because things break down a lot, and there's a lot of repairs that we have to do. And, you know, we make capital requests, right? But if something breaks down in the middle of the season and we have to spend $12,000 to replace something, then that comes out of operating. That doesn't come out of capital. So I guess I just kind of wanted to address those things. One thing I also might, you know, if we're talking about over the past 5 years, I might go ahead and pull up a slide, and Chuck, this was one that you were sent. Okay, so on the left is a year-over-year financial, comparison from fiscal year 21 through fiscal year 25, which just ended September 30th. So our rounds have increased from 22,599 up to just under 28,000 rounds in 2025. So we've had over a 23% increase of rounds, over 5,000 rounds increased in the 5 years that Landscapes has been there. Our revenue has increased from $718,000 to over $1.2 million. Total change of over $500,000 in additional revenue that we've brought in from year 1 to year 5 of the contract. Gross profit is up $420,000. Yes, our expenses are up, and there's a lot of reasons that our expenses are up. There's so many things that are now being paid for out of operating that did not used to be paid for out of operating. So, for example, when the city was managing or had Don Cruz that contracted that basically took care of the sales in the pro shop, and you had Doug Sweeney, who was actually in charge of the course, all of the maintenance crew was paid for out of the city budget. I think after it changed from an enterprise fund to the general fund, the people that worked there besides Don, they were city employees. They had city benefits, city insurance, payroll tax, all of that. So now Jackrabbit Run is paying for all of the expenses out of operational dollars. Everybody's wages, insurance, benefits, payroll taxes and processing, utilities, chemicals, parts, equipment repairs, land and lease payments. You're also paying the management fee to Landscapes Golf Management in addition to a contingent management fee because we've beat our budget by so much every year that we've been there due to our success. We now have a point of sale in all areas. We have a website, we have a phone app, we have marketing, which includes emails and social media presence, 24-hour access to make online tee times, GPS systems on the carts, a loyalty program, credit books program, takes care of human resources, accounting, expert support in all areas of the business, including agronomy, food, beverage, reduced pricing for chemicals, equipment. I mean, the list goes on and on. We've also put in over $60,000 in equipment and other repairs and things that were not able to be paid for out of capital dollars, but we paid for them out of operating. So I guess I just, like you said, the only time we get to talk about this, right, is during this, and especially this past year with the RFP. So our EBITDA, we've improved. Yes, we've been negative some years on EBITDA, but we've made drastic improvements over the last 5 years. I just want to draw your attention to the right side of the screen. Yes, we've taken significant pass increases, but one of the reasons that we had to do that is because there were not pass or green fee increases in a good section of years before Landscapes took over. So there were a lot of things that if increases could have been made in small increments year to year, we wouldn't be forced to probably be taking as many large increases as we are now. And then you throw in the added costs on top of that of, like we talked about, minimum wage and increased prices of everything. So we've increased our golf passes by 58 from first year to 5 year. Cart passes increased to 35, range passes by 26. Here's the kicker though. We've increased our public play rounds. So these are your people that are coming in and paying full green fees by 5,648. So our public play has gone from 60% to 60, basically 69%, and it's almost 15% of our total play. And we've increased the rounds by 5,278 rounds. So again, I hear what you're saying. I welcome questions. I think it's your job to ask questions, anybody as city council member, but I just want to make sure that we have the full picture of what Landscapes has actually accomplished since we've been there. Are we perfect? No. But I would put our business numbers for the last 5 years, the increases we've seen in revenues, passes, memberships, and all of that, I think that we're doing great things at Jackrabbit Run, which then is, again, is a positive reflection on the city of Grand Island.
Here.
Did I answer with your youth?
I guess I wasn't sure how many that was. How many 6 to 9 year olds we're talking about it?
I don't know that we've ever charged a 6 to 9 year old, honestly. We're generally, oh, are they going golfing with you? Here, do they have clubs? Here, I've got 3 sets of kids' clubs.
Will that change though? Will that, if Chuck sees, oh, well, it's going to be $15 for me to go, do you think that'll decrease that number of young golfers coming with their grandparents?
I don't think so, because I think they're still going to come. I think that maybe they're not going to say they're going to golf, but we generally ask, oh, are you golfing with Grandpa today? And, do you have clubs? And we generally will give them a bucket, let them go hit some range balls. And, that's the other thing that in supporting youth golf here in the city of Grand Island, we're the home to Northwest High Schools, both of their golf teams. We host 3 Nebraska junior tournaments every year. We host multiple high school tournaments. Diane Rosé's in the audience. We regularly host conference districts, and we even hosted Class D Boys State in '25 and will again in '27. So I would say we are probably one of the biggest advocates of promoting youth golf in this area, and I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Nickerson?
So Don, I always appreciate your expertise and passion for golfing and that course. You have done a great job of justifying why it's important to me. I don't know why we would sit here and want to berate the golf course for wanting to raise rates when we know everything else in the city's going up. Everything. I was a little surprised by the amount it was going up, but you've answered my questions when you were talking about we're in a competitive field. We're pretty close. I don't know what the others are charging, but part of your job will always be what's going on out there with our competition. You don't want to be the highest. You don't want to necessarily be the lowest, but we're maybe at parity. And I think when you speak of people who are increasing rounds to go to Jackrabbit, the course is speaking for itself. People are wanting to golf there because of the quality of it. And I know I've told you and others, I used to golf years ago. If I swung a club now, I'd hurt myself. But last time I was there, it was a beautiful course. And I mean, since I've quit golfing, I was out there. It was just gorgeous. It is gorgeous. And a lot of hard work has gone into that. I hate for you to feel guilty standing before council tonight asking for rate increases. That makes me feel bad that we have to come and try to explain every detail because we know what we know, and we know that this is part of the business. Every year I feel like you all feel you're a little under pressure when you come. If we didn't hit good numbers, you're under pressure because you got to report the bad news. Well, sometimes it just is what it is. You're very limited on how you can raise revenue. That's the whole problem. You got rounds, you have concessions, you have merchandise. I'm not even sure what the other one would be. But that's where you can make your money. That's where you have to make that bottom line just as close to even as possible. And I think, again, you've done a good job of explaining why you need that tonight. I have no problem with it, especially if we're relatively close to the competition, and the quality of the course will speak for itself. People will play where they want to play on courses that are nice and wide and that they can hit it out of bounds and hit it like I do everywhere but down the center of the fairway, and they still got a chance to get on the green. I just think that it's a good testament to what you all have done there. And again, congratulations on a renewal, because that's a big thing. I know that was probably a little nerve-wracking, but we're glad to see that that all came together. But I hate for you to stand here today and feel like you feel guilty for asking for rate increases, because we just know it's just something that has to be done. So thank you for all the good work that you do.
Mr. Hall?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, and the increases that we have proposed were based on research of Indian Head's rates, Centura Hills' rates. We are right at where their rates are, generally for rounds, like the public golf with Indian Head. With Caro, some of the rates we are right at where they are, and some of them we are significantly less. Past prices, there are some that we are pretty close on with Indian Head. Caro's business model is that their past prices, they are cheaper than our past prices. But I'm not able to do that and able to even come close to breaking even. It's just a different business model where they have multiple shotgun leagues and they hold more tournaments than we have. So again, not saying one's right or one's wrong, just a different business model. But I would say that we're very close, especially when you look at rates. You also need to make sure that you're calculating in our rates that I put on our website say include sales tax. And if the other two properties, generally, they're charging sales tax on top of that. And I know one of them for sure is also charging a convenience fee on any card transactions, which that adds up to a lot of dollars. We don't do that. But when you add it all up to try to compare apples to apples, we are where our competition is at, or extremely close.
Mr. Hossie?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I think you do a wonderful job out there. The course looks great. But I do want to clarify one thing, because I've heard it twice now before. This golf course was created in the late 70s, mid to late 70s. And for the first 25, 30 years, it was an enterprise fund. It had a contract golf pro who was responsible for the clubhouse and anybody employed there. And the maintenance people from Doug Sweeney and his predecessor, they were all city employees, but still in the golf fund and all paid for from the golf operations. That has always been the case, that they were paid for from the golf operations. About 10 years before you went to landscapes management, we brought it into the general fund because it would had a decade of we couldn't quite make it break even. And so we brought it into the general fund because we didn't want to have an annual how much money do you need contest. So we just got rid of that. It didn't change anything. In the parks division, they had a golf division, and both the city employee maintenance people and the golf pros were all under the same division, all accounted for, paid for from the golf operating revenues. So there's never been another fund that funded it before. And when you said the maintenance people weren't, they were city employees, which they are, or they were, and they weren't funded differently. They were still paid for from the golf revenues. You know, and so whether it was on an enterprise fund or whether it was part of the general fund, they were still paid for from the golf revenues. And our effort to break even has included both the contract and the employee part, both the maintenance and the operation of the clubhouse. So for 40 years plus, they've always been trying to be maintained together to look at one operation and not separate. So,
I mean, I guess I would just love to see that data. We've had discussions, I've had discussions before in that trying to get some data, some previous data, like golf course expenses and that prior to landscapes taking over, because again, it would help us to be able to, again, give you a more accurate representation of what we've done since we've been here, but I haven't been able to acquire that as of yet. So, you know, I don't know if that's how I would get that.
I think our city budgets are down in the library. They should be down there all the way from the 70s up to now. Just go look it up in the library. They should all be down there, but I'm sure the staff can provide the same information if you work through Todd.
Please vote. Motion adopted.
Resolution 9B, accepting supplemental Good Life District application materials from Woodsonia Highway 281 LLC. Mr. Nabity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you this evening, you have two action items. The first one is a resolution to adopt the information that Woodsonia sent last week into their application and make that a formal part of their application. With that, I know you're going to want to have more discussion on the whole thing. The November 12th, we had a study session. We sat in here for 3.5 hours and had a lot of good discussion and direction from council. And it was very clear that things that were important were to make sure that the aquatic center would be what you were thinking it would be, and that there would be funding for the aquatic center, and that the priority projects would be things like the aquatic center, the dirt work, the extension of utilities, the sports complex, all of those parts that were part and parcel with the Good Life District application. So Woodsonia was given the challenge by you, Mayor, to bring back their best offer with this, and I think they've done that. We've met several times since then with our representatives from D.A. Davidson and Janney and Gilmore and Bell, and with Woodsonia, and looked at different ways of potentially financing this. If you go back to a month ago, we were looking at potentially a single bond issue. Now we're looking at 2 bond issues. What that does is the single bond issue would be based on the $5 million that we know will be raised every year from the Good Life District funds. The second bond issue would be based on increased valuation or increased sales in that area. It would be based on refinancing the Conestoga debt, TIF and EEA. So it brings in, it's a much more complex document. That would be a second issue that we're anticipating would likely occur sometime in 2027. We would do the initial first bond in 2026, the second one in 2027. And what that would do is it does a couple of things. It gives better history on what the increased value of those new sales from Target, from Chick-fil-A, from the B&B theaters, the new taxes that are collected there. We get a better track record that the bond people say, you know what, if we got a better track record, we can make a better decision on what the value of those bonds are. We're not guessing nearly as much. If we diversify the sources of repayment by including refinancing the debt on Conestoga Marketplace so that there's property taxes involved with the TIF, there's EEA, and there's more history on what that EEA is producing, that also will help refinance that debt and diversify the ability to pay that off. So what we ended up with, in short, is that through this, we really come up with enough money to do the project that Woodsonia had proposed, which was consistent with the plan presented by Confluence in February of last year. So it's essentially that same plan that the group that got together did and put that together and said, this is where we're at. That plan, you'll remember, was based on the Veterans Legacy Plan that was done in 2018. Is it exactly the same? No. But that first plan was really a high-level concept. And as you start getting into the nitty-gritty of all of these things, you make changes. You do some things that, well, that would work better if we did it this way. What Woodsonia has brought forward is a plan that looks feasible. It's different than what they were talking about a year ago. They were talking about developing the entire housing there over the course of 10 years originally. Now they're talking 20 years. 20 years, Grand Island can absorb the housing in 20 years. So there's some things there that have changed from what we saw originally, and I think we're a whole lot closer to where we need to be. I know Mitch and Drew are here. They want to present what the addition to the application. I'm here, can certainly answer questions. We have representatives here. Mike Rogers is here, and we've got representatives from Janney and D.A. Davidson. So there are a number of people here that can answer questions as we move forward on both this item and the next item. The key thing with this resolution is that this incorporates it into the application, which then the second application or second resolution would be authorizing staff to negotiate based on the things that are in this.
Thank you, Mr. Navity.
Pat O'Neill, would you like to speak? I apologize, I can't read this name, but Chad Knight?
Hello, Council. I'm new to Nebraska. I'm from Kansas. Just started as a YMCA CEO, so I'm here to introduce myself. So just started last week. It got a little cold going on. It must be the move up from Kansas to Nebraska, but I'm just here to tell you the opportunity we like to have from the YMCA standpoint. I've been in the YMCA 30 years. I love to fundraise. I think that's what the board hired me to come do, is fundraise and help build a new YMCA, and that's a goal. I built many new YMCAs. I built additions to Ys. I built a new branch in Dodge City. I just want the opportunity to be a partner, and we relish that opportunity. And I think we'd be a good partner for you guys. You know, the Y can come in and do the fundraising. That's what we do. So just want to be able to say that we're here, we're going to make a difference, and we'd like to be a partner. And just so you know, not to put an edge on you, but our pool heater went down today. So Pat told me they ran water hoses with hot water. I said, what? I was thinking of getting those hot water tanks the farmers put in the water tanks and put in the pool. Maybe that'll heat the water up, but our pool heater did go down, so we gotta get that replaced. But the pool's a vital part to the YMCA, and it's a vital part to the community, so I'm a lifelong swimmer, learned how to swim at the YMCA, and I want other kids to have that opportunity, and this will be a great opportunity with that Good Life District. So appreciate you guys, and come see me at the Y.
Thank you, and welcome to Grand Island.
Karen Johnson.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Councilman Sheard for all your help. He picked up the phone on a Saturday morning and talked to me for about 45 minutes, talked me down the ledge a little bit. My name's Karen Johnson. I've lived in Grand Island all my life, and I'm president of the Pickleball Club here in Grand Island. All my friends are here. And we were very concerned and alarmed about the November 12th meeting with Woodsonia about the lack of pickleball courts going to be possibly available. We feel like there was a bit of a bait and switch. On their website, they had pickleball courts, dedicated pickleball courts, and a dedicated pickleball court is a court that is only designed for pickleball. We have none in Grand Island. We have 2 outdoor dedicated courts, no indoor. So we're here to advocate for those dedicated pickleball courts contained within the plans for the Good Life District Sports Complex. As I said, there are no dedicated courts. The field house, which is open October 1st through April 30th, is available for basketball, volleyball, and pickleball from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., first come, first served. There are 3 courts available. Many times people are waiting, 10, 12 people waiting to play. The Grand Island Tennis Center provides temporary courts on 3 mornings a week for private groups with 4 courts available. There are no available time slots for open play in the evenings or weekends anywhere indoors. From what we have heard in the media about the proposed plans, pickleball is an afterthought, and we really thought that we're not any better off than we are right now. Pickleball continues to be the fastest growing sport in America, with participation increasing 85.7% this past year. When I first started playing in 2018, the average player was 67, which kind of turned me off from it a little bit, and now the average age in 2025 is 34. So it's going nowhere but down. We have many Grand Island players, myself included. I travel to Kearney to play at the Buffalo County Fairgrounds, which hold 10 to 13 dedicated courts. They hold tournaments, mini tournaments, and leagues almost weekly. Players can drop in and find a game at almost any time of the day. And we are asking for the same progressive thinking that Kearney has displayed both in working with the pickleball community at the fairgrounds and their new sports complex. I don't know if you've been there, but it is incredible. And if Woodsonia does anything close to that, I will be thrilled. They have 3 dedicated courts, and when I was playing there 2 weeks ago, Scott Hayden, who is employed at Kearney Recreation, was also playing, and he said they regretted installing only 3 courts. He said it was booked to capacity almost on a daily basis, especially weekends and evenings, and we have no weekends and evenings available to us. The town of Columbus has 8 indoor pickleball courts in their new facility. Why is that not a possibility for Grand Island? We should be the leader in central Nebraska, not the follower. Dedicated courts would not only be used in the winter, but summer as well. You won't see people playing in the heat of the day in Nebraska or when it's raining. Popular times in July and August are 6 to 10 a.m. and 7 to 11 at night due to heat. In the evenings, the courts are packed with teenagers, which is great to see. It's hard to get a court, but it's fun to see because they're all out there playing. I'm not saying they know how to play, but they're out there playing. Indoor courts would be another great activity for young kids, too. It was mentioned in a media article that the sports complex could have up to 32 non-dedicated courts. So that means we are sharing lines with basketball, volleyball, and pickleball. I taught Mr. Nickerson how to play at the field house, and he had on each different court, there are different lines. And that's really hard to explain to some beginners. Okay, that line is good for that one, but not for this court. You know, it's just such a growing sport, we cannot be so short-sighted. 32 non-dedicated courts is an incredible amount of space when one court measures 20 by 44 without any safety space around it. That is roughly 3 to 4 football fields. Who lays the flooring? And where are all the nets kept? Where are 32 nets kept? Logistically, that could be a nightmare for whoever's running the complex. Would it not make more sense to have a fourth of that space for 8 to 12 courts? Tournaments could be held by the complex or any other entity that would like to rent it. In the Woodsonia packet from November 12th, they state they would like to host 28 basketball and/or volleyball tournaments. If you look at the 7 months that pickleball has to be played indoors, those 28 weekends are taken up by those tournaments. There would be no availability for weekend pickleball play on these multi-use courts, much less a pickleball tournament. I have been contacted by John Campbell of World of Pickleball, and they would like to have a state qualifier in Grand Island because of its central location. This would draw not just players from Nebraska. I go to many qualifiers. I've gone to 12 different states to play. And so we would draw from other states as well. But due to the lack of indoor facilities, I believe he's going to reach out to Kearney or Lincoln instead. What other things are we missing that we don't know about because of our lack of facilities? No one from Woodsonia has reached out to the pickleball community here in Grand Island to find out the needs and desires or wants of the players. Shouldn't this be a priority when the Grand Island Parks and Recreation Master Plan identified the need for a year-round facility, including a pool, which I'm so glad we have a new YMCA director, it's awesome, and court sports like pickleball. From the master plan, and I quote, "The establishment of a Good Life District presents an ideal opportunity to meet these needs," unquote. Unfortunately, we don't see these being met. Thanks for your time and your consideration. If you have any questions, maybe we can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Bollington, would you like to speak? Okay. Jay?
Well, I'm just reflecting, I support the application and the modification. I think it's a good sign. I think it also shows where the city stakeholders have worked well and hand in hand with Woodsonia. And it's a far cry from the public session that occurred in August, where I think it was 2 people were here, and there was hardly any reference to aquatics at all. And then here, a few weeks ago, I heard countless references to the need for, meeting a greater need for aquatics. And a number of council members I know each expressed the vision that if there wasn't maybe a broader application, it might not be supported. So I think the modification on the application well serves everyone, and it does provide an opportunity to go ahead and have that site be something that maybe we didn't ever dream ever. Even the pioneers that went ahead and gave that ground initially to the Veterans Home, I think would be proud to see its multi-use today. And while some of us were really, and many of us still are lamenting the fact that the Veterans Home moved, gosh, look at what this facility is going to be bringing about. So I commend the application, Mr. Snyder and his team, and you all for your leadership, because I think it shows where, indeed, this modification well serves the best needs of the Good Life District going forward. Thank you, Mayor Steele.
Scott Reef?
I'm Scott Reef. I live at 3481 West Shimmer Drive in Grand Island, Nebraska. So thank you for letting me talk tonight. First off, I want to thank Woodsonia for the Conestoga project. It has been a great addition to our community and will continue to serve Grand Island well. I also want to be clear, speaking against a project is the last thing I want to do. As a developer who has asked for TIF in the past and will again ask for it in the future, I understand the importance of this tool, and normally I would be standing here in support. And I do support this project of the sports complex. I want to be clear with that. What I'm struggling with is the housing aspect of it. That's tied in with the project. But in this case, I do believe the project does create a significant unfair advantage compared to other developers in Grand Island who do not own property in the Good Life District. Based on the numbers, Woodsonia would receive 23% of the project funded through the Good Life District. Now, potentially a potential 10% through TIF. So that means 33% of the entire project is funded by public incentive programs. On top of that, potentially acquiring the land for $1. I guess myself, I would definitely take this deal all day long. Also, if you're a business owner in the community and someone told you that you could have 1/3 of your cost up front covered with these funds, and plus you could get your land for $1, no one's gonna not do that deal. I definitely would do that deal. But this is not only gonna affect, this is gonna affect a lot of things. It's gonna affect appraisals, it's gonna affect land values. You start flooding markets, there's gonna be a ripple effect to this. I'm also concerned about just the sheer numbers. At 1,500 apartments, this single development will bring more than Talon, which was built in 2016. There's 208 units. Legacy 34 with 303 units. Sterling Apartments with 222 units. Oak Point with 154 units. Just those 4 properties, so that's the last 10 years, I think. That is about 887 units. So we talked about potentially over the next 20 years, 1,500 units, but these are multiple developers that did that in 10 years. And I'm just afraid the demand's not there. Introducing that many units is not just aggressive, it is definitely risky. Right now, vacancies in the apartment market in Grand Island are at the highest we've seen in decades. Many property owners are reporting more empty units more than any point in the last 20 years. Our company alone has 150 units open. I reached out to other owners, Jeremy and Jordan Everson. They have 49 units open. I reached out to another property owner in town. They had 17 units open. And typically, like the one I talked to, they're like, we're always full. Like, we're starting to see signs of a softening market. You will drive around, you'll see more rental signs. You will see deals now that you may get a month free. You may get other deals when you lease a property now. If we flood a market with this much new supply and other developers continue to move forward with their planned project, we're risking those vacancies to be much worse. This is how communities end up in situations, for example, recently, Lexington, Nebraska. One major employer leaves and the market is oversupplied and suddenly house values drop, property owners are now over-leveraged, and communities struggle to recover. It is all about balance. This is also a critical long-term concern. One developer is essentially funded to satisfy 20 years of housing demand in one single project. What happens to local developers who have been steadily growing Grand Island for decades? Do they stay? Do they continue to invest in this market with no longer a fair advantage? Or do they take their capital, experiences, and jobs to other communities that provide an equal opportunity for success? As an example, last year I stood in front of you talking about adding 3 more 22 units out at Talon Apartments. If you notice, I have not moved forward with that project because the market is not calling for them. Every time I've ever presented in front of you, a month later or less, I am moving dirt. Like, that's been the precedent. But I'm gonna hold off until the demand calls for it. In the end, I fully agree that Grand Island needs a sports complex. What we do not need right now is more housing tied to it. The priority should be job creation, sales tax growth, and not increasing the apartment inventory where the apartment market is starting to soften already. Our current local developers are meeting the housing demand of the community. And if Wasonia wants to build housing, they absolutely can do that, but with the same playing ground, with TIF, the way everyone else has done it, but combining Good Life District funding, TIF, and free land, that may go too far. Also, approving TIF for this development in a single all or none decision, rather than phasing out the approach that has been established by myself in Grand Island, removes meaningful oversight and accountability. It limits the city's ability to protect taxpayers, ensure performance milestones are met, and make adjustments over the next 20 years as condition and community needs change. And at the end of the day, Grand Island is on the books for the Good Life District bond. I am proud that Watsonia has brought the Good Life District to Grand Island. It will bring great things, but approving additional TIF on top of the Good Life Award is not what's best for our community. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you.
Gerald Pulse.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I was afraid I was going to be the only one speaking against the proposal, but thank you, Scott. He made the same things. I just looked up about this Woodsonia project is how many acres, what is the percentage of the town that they will own for free, virtually free. And that is, and again, you went through great lengths on the details of the golf course fees. And a year ago it was, I don't know, it was a long time spent questioning the new animal control regulations. And then 5 minutes spent on, I think it was Mr. Perkins, so I probably shouldn't use names, on his extremely blighted request for properties. And there were no details. It was just, oh, we all just know that. So that is the thing. If you're going to do tax increment financing, we need feasibility studies. How many of the students, how many kids are going to be in that housing project that are going to be going to Grand Island Public Schools? And if you don't have that number, you're skipping a detail. And how much is that money going to cost? Or how much are those students going to cost? You have road maintenance. So what's the anticipated snow removal project? What's the anticipated maintenance for roads in these, how many miles, how many hours of operation? We don't have those details. You just throw it out, oh, it's great for Grand Island. And it's, come on, we don't even have a school board that comes in and says, I'm concerned about the number of students that we're going to be sending to these high schools that we're not getting money for from the city. Now, we got to state this $400 million, got to find a $400 million shortfall, cover that. Now, if they decide to hold back on their state funding, then who's going to foot that bill for the schools? It's not going to be in the TIF projects, is it? We have the big expense. I don't know how much nature you can have in a park when you spend $45 million to develop it. You know, but you got the $45 million earmarked for the state park. You've got, and that Island Oasis is not going to come in at $12 million. You have the record of this city for amending contracts for at least probably 10% higher than it was originally bid at is probably in the 90-something percentile. We have what Mr. Reeve was talking about. It was something that I came up with too. I'm skipping around, I'm scatterbrained. But that was a thought I had also. You've given this Woodsonia project, this top billing, gold-notch standards. How many contractors are we going to lose? How many will go under because Woodsonia is now going to control this huge percentage of land and property? And they got this tremendous advantage. The citizens are going to be paying for this whole project pretty much, and it's not going to keep, you can lower the levy as far as you want to, and we're going to be paying higher taxes. There's no doubt about it. And I'll conclude. I've rambled too long already. But you've got, and I've got a fee schedule for Meadowlark if you want to look at that. Kearney has Meadowlark Golf Course. It's ranked. It's got a national ranking. And their fees are lower than what Grand Island has, but that's really not the point. All I'm saying is they've got a great golf course. We have, probably nicer than Jackrabbit. Hastings has Lockland Golf Course. and we've got Jackrabbit, Indian Head. Kearney has a four-year university. Grand Island has College Park, one building. Kearney has a community college campus. Have you seen that? Have you seen their Central Community College campus? It looks like a college. You know, we've got a couple buildings there south on the road. Hastings has a community college with a campus, a real campus, a sprawling campus. They also have a four-year college. What does Grand Island have? They've lost, I don't think they have anything really going for them. Kearney they've got their Yanni Park. Have you seen that? And there's a kayak river there you can float in when the weather's much nicer. Hastings has a symphony orchestra. Kearney probably does too through the college. You know, we've got 20 roundabouts, we've got about 20 roundabouts, so I guess we got that. And North Road has become the poor man's Lombard Street, with all the curves in there. There's 5 of them, I believe. Yeah, well, they'll get to 20 here soon. So, dang it, now I've lost my, oh, okay, and one last thing, being the Aquatic Center seems to be this premier item tonight. We know we're going to need a new high school, and the rumblings have started already, finally. The senior high is busting at the seams, Walnut is busting at the seams pretty much. We're going to need a new high school. I think it's time, if you're going to build a new high school, is to put a competition pool at the high school and put it with the high school in west of town, wherever along the new highway would be, I guess. And because this aquatic center here it's not far from the railroad tracks, the Burlington tracks. And I live too close to the tracks, and I know the ground shakes when the trains go by. And if you recall, 15, 20 years ago, we had a county commissioner who sued the city he sued the city, I believe, because the walls in his house were cracking, he said, from the trains. I don't know if it was from emptying their coal but the train shaking. And his house was probably a mile from the power plant. But he sued and he won. I think he won like $750,000. So that would be a consideration too for this aquatic center, which is right there, right off of the railroad tracks. So I know that $600 million project is a lot of big numbers out there, and everybody wants to maybe be a part of this wonderful success story, but it's probably not going to be one. You're extending it out too long. You're giving unfair advantage to one single company. And I wish you would get back at least to the 2018 plan. That was done with citizen input. Citizens had a chance to say, well, this would be nice, that would be nice. And there was a very nice plan at that time. This one shows so little retail space. How are they going to raise any property taxes from that one? And it's about as well thought out as my little speech here tonight. I'll tell you that right now. So, boy, I just wish you would think about this, putting that aquatic center out there by the railroad tracks. I think you should just make it a separate entity at a high school. You can use that room to build your pickleball courts or something. I don't know. But I think you're concentrating too much stuff in a single area, either with financing Woodsonia or with all the sports venues that you're trying to put in there. And, I'm looking at the cost of it, what it's going to cost me over the years in property taxes, or increased sales tax, or whatever other tax you come up with. So I would suggest you need to reconsider this whole operation. Thank you very much.
Mitch and Drew, did you want to speak now? Or, okay, you can come on up.
I thought we did.
There you go.
Thanks, Chad. Uh-oh.
What do I need to do?
Click it again. Okay.
Okay, can everybody see that? I can zoom in here a little bit. Okay, great. Well, Mayor, Council, it's good to be here again. Nice to see everyone. I think it was about a month ago we had our study session, which I thought was a really nice opportunity to be able to talk publicly about this project. There's been a lot of effort put into this, a lot of effort. This has been going on for over 2 years. So I think before we get started, I just want to thank again city staff, all the consultants. There are so many people that have put so much time and energy into this project. So just want to start off, our presentation by thanking everyone that's put in the time and the effort to get us to this point. So yeah, based on the study session, we went back, we've heard from council. I don't know if we accepted everything, but we tried to incorporate as much as we can. And then we came back and we want to tonight run through what we're calling proposed terms. So per the mayor's direction, these are sort of best and final terms and what we'd like to present to council. Like I said, this has been going on for a long time. So this is really a pretty simple document. And so I think we just want to run everybody through this, as I'm sure there's going to be questions and discussions, so we can open that up at the end. But maybe let's try to get through the document, and then we can open it up for questions. So first part, I really won't take everybody back through this. The phases and the components of the project, as Chad Navity mentioned, really have stayed the same. We did incorporate the Aquatic Center, so I think we want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Ryan O'Neill, we definitely want to thank. Ryan has spent countless hours working with Mitch, our consultants, on this Aquatic Center. So honestly, thank you, Ryan, for the amount of time and effort you've put into this. So I think if anybody has questions on the rest of the development as a whole, we can talk about those. Everything's generally the same as what we talked about at the study session, with the exception of the Aquatic Center. So I don't know if Mitch or Ryan, if you guys want to spend just a little bit of time talking about where we were at the study session and where we're at today on the Aquatic Center.
Yeah. Ryan, if you want, I can kind of run through it, if that's okay. Okay. So we do have the folks from Brandstetter here, as well as Health Fitness. So I do think I think there's 15 consultants in the room tonight, so we should have a lot of experts here. But as mentioned, Ryan, thank you. You've been on countless calls and were really helpful in kind of dialing in. Same to you, Jack, on what the Aquatic Center would ultimately entail. So where we're at tonight, I won't spend a ton of time talking about where we were at before, because I don't think we really need to talk about that, right? But where we're at tonight is ultimately an approximately 30,000 square foot indoor facility. And that indoor facility has 10 lanes, which are a 25-yard competitive pool, a diving well to accommodate 2 diving boards, concessions, meetings, entry, bathroom, locker room facilities, seating capacity for a minimum of 400 attendees, a warm water therapy pool area with a 0 entry. We spent a lot of time on that. A jacuzzi, which I know everybody's excited about, and then a party room and all the mechanical equipment. So if it's okay, and if there's any technical questions, we can call Charlie, Rob, Arch, any of the folks back there to speak to these. But ultimately, we want to run you guys through the design and kind of the visual aspirations for what we would intend to deliver to the city. So this is the Grand Island Natatorium. I'd never heard that word until a couple weeks ago. But this is our interior schematic layout. So the way that this would be positioned is the entrance is on the north. The areas that are in kind of this lighter blue teal color would be the wet areas. So the green would be the entrance. You have a vestibule, some seating, concessions, cafe, full restaurant, or full kitchen, and then you have a handful of kind of the administrative spaces in this. On the right side, which we'll have some visuals to show you folks, you'd have the competitive pool area. So if you're looking at this, this is actually set up so that the lanes can go either north and south or east and west. When you're doing your competition pools, obviously the folks would sit on the north end and be able to view it kind of in a standard way, and then the diving boards would be positioned on the south end of the site. But again, this is 10 lanes, which I think was one of the key pieces that we wanted to deliver on. On the very south end of the facility, we would have a warm water pool area. This would be in its own dedicated facility. Obviously, it's temperature controlled. We want to keep that in a dedicated space, and that's also where we would have the jacuzzi. Beside that, we'd have a multi-purpose room. Arch, you've been super helpful on kind of the programming here, so he could speak more to what that would actually entail, why we think that's important to have. But that would serve birthday parties, events, things like that. We've got a large mechanical room as well on kind of the southwest corner, and then obviously men's and women's locker rooms in the central area. And then these are the schematic designs that coincide with the layout that we just talked about with you guys. So this would be the view looking at the entrance. Obviously, on the left side, this is where the seating would be, kind of behind that wall. This would be the view sitting in the seating. Again, you can kind of see a little more clearly here how these lanes would work east to west or north to south as well. And then the diving boards would be positioned. I think these look great. I really do think the Brandstetter folks hit a home run on what this design entails. And then looking across the pool, you'd have that glass wall that sees into the warm water therapy area. This would be a view from the lobby. I think that's it. So we can get into as many details as we want for the Aquatic Center. Ryan, I'm sure you're going to have some thoughts to share on it. But as Drew mentioned, and Chad, you actually did a great, I don't know where Chad is, but great overview on kind of the revised structure that we came up with. So the big key changes were obviously the Aquatic Center and then the financing structure. I think were kind of the two key components. So yeah, if it's okay, we'll scroll up there.
Yeah, so if you guys have this in front of you. So again, section 1 is really just another outline of all the components of the development. Again, we wanted to touch on the aquatics. That was a lot of the conversation at the study session, so thought that was important. But let's go through section 2 here, project financing. So really this is going to be broken into 3 buckets, and Chad alluded to that a little bit. Priority number 1 will be essentially all of what I'm going to call sort of the public. And there was some discussion about that. The Janney and D.A. Davidson folks were extremely helpful in really providing us some bond runs. And obviously there could be some risks subject to the market, the bond market. Those are just things outside of all of our control. But the initial issuance would be, the plan would be to do a bond issuance in 2026. The DA and Janney team thinks that would net between cash in hand today, bond proceeds, interest income, things of that nature, about $77.5 million. So if you look at Roman numeral 3, you can see there would be a priority that those dollars get spent on what I'm going to call the public piece of this, which I know was brought up at the study session, which is, well, what happens if this other stuff gets built and we don't get, as a city, we don't get the public piece of this stuff? So I think this protects the city. We put a lot of thought into this. And so the public infrastructure would obviously all go in, Eagle Scout Lake expansion. There's some soft costs that would need to get funded with that. But then this would be a turnkey construction of the sports complex and a turnkey construction of the aquatic center. And so So then number 5 down below really is just sort of a, what I'll call sort of a safety mechanism that we will design and price those facilities before any more of those proceeds are utilized. So essentially, the city is assured the developer, and there'll be plenty of attorneys and plenty of oversight with the use of these dollars, but that none of the rest of the dollars will be utilized until those facilities are designed, and we've got a reputable contractor signed up under contract to build those with a gross maximum price. And so I would think that should hopefully give the city some assurance that those will get constructed as we designed them, and then whatever funding is left, and again, we all just need to know going into this, these are projections from DA Davidson and Janney. Again, bond market could get better, bond market could get worse. We don't know. But this is a snapshot in time as of today based on the revenues and the assumptions that we gave them. So you can see a priority of how we're calling that the Phase 1A proceeds, that $77.5 million. And then if you jump down to B, this would be Phase 1B. So these would be, and Chad did a nice job trying to describe these. So this is a little bit complicated. So the initial Phase 1A, those are the existing revenues today that are subject to the $5 million cap from the state, based on the last legislative session. So then we would contemplate doing a bond issuance in 2027. This would be basically all the new sales that have happened, and how the state and the Department of Revenue are identifying the new sales. So again, these are based on some of our assumptions. I think most of the new sales are basically coming from Conestoga. Those are generally where all your new sales are going to be if you look at just the boundaries of the district. So those folks took the assumptions, thought that the issuance would net about $27.6 million. And so then here you can see the priority payment under 3 here would be any cost overruns, and then dollars would start getting spent towards the mixed use, housing, any soft costs, and then again, there was discussion about the statutory 20% allocation towards non-revenue producing costs. So we would continually measure that to make sure statutorily we were staying in compliance with those state statutes. The third and really what I'll call final bucket is the developer promissory note, that's C, and that is essentially going to be the difference between, it's $140 million minus whatever the bond proceeds actually end up being for Phase 1A and 1B. Again, you can see the projections that DA and Janney produced up here. So if those numbers come in exactly, there would be a developer promissory note, so that would be at the developer's risk or our risk of about $34.7 million, call it $35 million. And that would get repaid through 2 forms. The excess revenues that come off the Phase 1B bonds. And again, I think Janney and DA are here if you guys have questions on this. Or if either one of those bond issuances, those will get refinanced at some point over the life of this thing. I think there's, 28, 29 years left. So there's a long life cycle on this. This bond market's going to go up and down. But the theory is, and we talked at length with city staff about this, the whole intent of doing this project is to bring more people to Grand Island. And bringing more people to Grand Island should rise the tide in all boats, and all the sales within your whole market hopefully are increasing. And that's the intent of this entire project. And so that would be our thought, is that if done correctly, built out correctly, that all those sales will rise. And so there should hopefully be a benefit. But so then you can see that last bucket, or that third bucket, will really be allocated towards whatever remaining portions are left within the development to get funded. And then the TIF piece is still in there. That's number, or letter D there, you can see. There was a lot of talk about establishing a city reserve maintenance account for some of these public facilities. There's still a lot of dialogue that these will operate profitably. but our proposal is the same, that we establish an EEA district over the boundaries of just the Veterans Village, not the entire Good Life District in and of itself, just the Veterans Village area. So obviously, there's no new sales there today. And if we put a projection together, if you scroll down to, I think it's Exhibit D, I can pop down here. Yeah, there you go. So I don't know if everybody can see this, but this is a projection of a sales growth, and I believe this is over a 20, was it a 30-year period? No.
We did
20,
yeah,
20.
we did a 30-year period, but obviously there's going to be 3 years where this is under construction, right, and not generating sales.
So this would generate, assuming the assumptions would be accurate, which again, these are pretty low sales projections, it would generate a little under $10 million over the term of the district. So, so that was number 3. Number 4 is land conveyance. We talked about that extensively at the study session. Our request would be for a single land conveyance. I think that's the cleanest and simplest way to do this. We did gather feedback. Staff has brought this up multiple times. And then we put a list of 3 clawbacks that you can see listed here under Section 5. So I think, again, another protection mechanism for the city. If we don't perform, we're losing out. We're reconveying this land back to the city. We're losing out on any incentives. So the onus is really on us to go out and make sure this project is successful and perform. So you can see there's 3 clawbacks that were identified in this proposed term sheet. And then lastly was next stage documents. I still think, our opinion is, this has been going on for over 2 years. I think there's probably a little deal fatigue on everyone's part. And so we would really like, obviously, council's support. We want to answer any questions, council's support, and then we would like to move to definitive documents. I mean, we're ready to get this project started. We've been talking about it for a long time. We understand there's feedback. I think, as Chad mentioned, there's been questions about all different components of it, housing, et cetera. I think we've been really thoughtful on phasing these things in over a longer period of time to ensure we're not flooding the market and things of that nature. So with that, we can open it up to questions. But those are the terms. And again, we're happy to answer any questions.
Council members, a motion is in order. Mr. O'Neill?
I move we accept 2025-420.
Mr. Hossie?
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? Mr. O'Neill?
Several things here. First, I just want to talk about the aquatics a little bit. Spent a lot of time on that. Worked with the guys at Branstad Carroll a lot on the design. I talked to Pat O'Neill a lot as well, which, just for clarification, Pat and I are not related, although we have a relative with the same name, but we're different clans. The aquatics in Grand Island right now are really rough. Pat and I have both been involved with that pool a lot through our kids and doing competitive meets and other things, and involvement at the Y. And he said that pool is long past its already expected lifetime. And if we don't do something on a pool soon, we're just not going to have an indoor pool, period. And there'll be nothing. And this is a pretty big win on the aquatics for Grand Island. This is about $10 million more in this project than we were going to get back a month ago. So that's a very big win. We worked really hard, and I pushed as hard as I could to get as much as we can. And we really think that this new aquatics is going to offer a lot more, and it'll last us well into the future. There's a lot of very good things there for the community. And I'd like to thank Pat O'Neill for his help as well. And Mitch and Drew, I'm going to introduce an amendment on the next resolution, which will probably make sense to all of you in this room later. But before I get to that, I just want to ask you guys a few questions over some there's some things that I had some concern on in the current amendment here, or the update that you guys have. As far as future facilities and some of the undeveloped land, would you guys agree that in the long term, if a fully funded external partner, such as a YMCA, nonprofit, or other group, wanted to construct a new facility or field house on undeveloped land within the athletic portion of the plan, the city could have the ability to evaluate and approve that on its own?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan, and I know that's been discussed too. I did bring, I didn't think to include it as an exhibit, but an updated exhibit from Olson that shows the buildable footprint around the aquatic center that is going to be pad ready. So that was part of our application, but we did set aside a sizable, yeah, is it okay if we hand these out? I'm going to do it anyway. But so I'll wait until everybody has it. That way we know what we're looking at. Okay. So there you go. So what you're looking at, I don't know if you want to hold that up. Sorry, we didn't bring big printouts, but what you're looking at is a zoomed in view. And this can get lost when you're looking at the larger site plan that we submitted. But what you're looking at is a zoomed in view of the area that we have slated for the aquatic center. Okay? And
Which would be in purple, right?
Which would be in purple.
Yeah.
So that area we had set aside on the master plan as expansion for either a field house, a YMCA, another public facility. So what you're looking at in purple is the actual dimensions of the aquatic center that we have designed today. It's 32,000 feet. That is not an insignificant facility. But what's also not insignificant is the area that's hatched adjacent to it, which is 190,000 square feet. This gentleman actually probably knows this a lot more, but I think an average YMCA is, how big is an average YMCA, just by example?
Good size, 70,000, 80,000.
But that's with an aquatic center, right?
Yeah,
So take that out of it, we're talking about a 40,000 square foot facility. That would be 6 YMCAs that could fit in that area, or 2 additional sports complexes that could fit in that area. So I think we did a poor job of kind of explaining how big of a footprint that is and what you can fit there. But yes, I mean, Ryan, that's kind of a long-winded way. And then the other piece, just to make this clear, we did add a legend on the far right. Olson was helpful in this to show the comparison of the existing soccer fields that are there today and then the number of soccer fields that they're getting in the relocated area. So there's 13 fields today. There's 24 fields in this area once the plan is done. And then there's been some discussions too on parking. You can see on the top of the plan, if there was ever an instance we needed more parking, which I don't believe we do, there'd be another 340 stalls that could be installed there.
So going back to what I was talking about, just to get your answer on this, but especially in that area over there, the undeveloped area, would you guys wouldn't have a concern of the city evaluating and approving another entity like a Y or any other external party to build something there if the city?
No, that'll be ground retained by the city long-term, and it would be at the city's discretion to do what they want to there.
And then I just want to talk a little more too about, can we agree that external organizations or donors may contribute funding towards athletic facilities either for current project or for possible future enhancements? And can we confirm that future additions still would not necessarily obligate Woodsonia themselves to build it, and we could follow a structured process plan?
Yeah, I think kind of what you're asking, Ryan, is if, a private entity or a group wanted to donate, right, to fund some piece of this project, would we accept that? Yes. And kind of the big challenge has been finding all the funding that we need, but our answer would be yes.
And one other thing I think several of us had concern with, as far as regarding the RFP for the athletic complex operator, Can we agree that the final selection could rest with the city alone since the facility will be city-owned?
That we would really push back on, Ryan, and to kind of speak to why. When we look at the original intent of this facility, we did not intend for it to be city-owned. We didn't. But I think that was a point that was important to the city, and it was ultimately something that we were, open to exploring. At the same end, we got to remember that the only reason we're here today is because of the state, right? This is the state's dollars that they're giving up, and they're giving it up for new tourism, new sales tax dollars to the state. And the main impetus of that, Ryan, is a tournament-driven athletic complex, right? That's what we've used 3 separate sports consultants to design. That's the facility that we have today. So I think, Ryan, we want assurance that this facility is going to be designed and operated long-term to fulfill the obligations that we've made to the state. That's a key piece for us. And then aside for that, too, we're going to have a significant personal investment in this area. I mean, we'll have a larger investment personally here than the city will. We want to ensure that this is operated the way that it was intended to.
Let me add one more thing, too. I think the other thing is, the part that's probably given us the piece why we're so adamant about the housing and all this other stuff we've talked about is this is on the edge of the community. We talked about the importance of getting rooftops up there and getting housing, and we're proposing to build a hotel and a restaurant. And so having a tournament-driven sports complex hopefully assures that we get some traffic, obviously, to those facilities, to a hotel and a restaurant up there. So, making sure, again, we don't have any distrust with the city, but if the city elects to hire somebody and we feel like, gosh, this is really not being managed to drive tourism and drive tournament traffic that will book hotel rooms and fill restaurant seats, that's why we would like a voice at that table to say, hey, guys, can we, and we'll probably lean on our consultants that will come in and provide some insight and some advice. So
I think everyone in this room, if this is built, would want it to be very well run. My standpoint is still I'm very firm, and I'd like the city to be the prover. I think we're well motivated to want it to run well too, and others will probably have other comments on that as well, but that's my 2 cents. And I'll yield my time to the next speaker here.
I have a quick question. Is this what you handed out in your materials?
No. It's
Okay.
not.
Are you okay if we
Yes.
incorporate it into the added materials? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Nickerson.
Well, it's good to see both of you again tonight. It's been quite a few weeks of hard work, I can see. And again, appreciate all the work that you're doing here. What I need to understand, what are we really voting on in this particular section? Because there's been a lot of stuff talked about here that kind of, I think, overlaps in the two. And I need to understand what is germane to be discussing in this particular motion versus the coming motion. So I need some clarity on that, because there's a lot of stuff been talked about.
The actual motion in front of you is whether to incorporate these amended materials into the application. So that way, when you make the final, your next decisions on the application, you know whether these materials are part of that or not.
Right. I just want to be clear, because really what we're talking about is the addition of the aquatics information and what else?
I think there's some greater detail on the project funding.
Okay, and the funding. So those are 2 things that we really need to be talking about. What I don't want to do is have our pickleball people having to sit here for another hour, because I think when we get to the part when we're talking about the complex itself and all the things that we hope that can happen, I don't know that's going to be ironed out tonight. That's not really, I don't think, where we're going to be ironed out the details. Are we on that?
Yeah, we are.
So we will be ironing out the details on that.
Well, I think
Ed's
the
coming up with a little bit of-
components within the facility, but I think, to Mitch's point, there will be city retained ground that you can do as many, but as far as the funding that's allocated today for this project, this is how we would propose to use that funding and for the phases. But
All
the
right.
city, to the exhibit you just received, there's going to be an aquatic center that's built, that's part of this initial funding, but there's also 190,000 square feet for expansion for a YMCA, for an enclosed pickleball facility. So if these folks want to go out and get other public monies or private donations or things of that nature, there's going to be plenty of other things to look at in other parts of this project.
Okay, I think that's important to know, and I thank you for clarifying that, because as designed, pickleball really isn't part of the original design right now for the sports complex. So we know that.
Right.
We've talked about that. And I need our pickleball people to know that, because we probably will not be fine-tuning or changing that particular building in our discussion tonight. But I understand where you're coming from. And Karen, all the good things I know about pickleball are from you. All the bad things are my own fault. So she's done a great job in this community in the dedication. We have a pickleball community that's going to be really helping drive this. And I don't know that we need to, forgive me for saying this, muddy up this whole thing for pickleball right now when we have other options we might be able to look at.
Right.
I don't want to redesign this whole thing just for another 6 courts, but we can address that. It's something that we know is near and dear to us. I think Karen said in an article we have 220 pickleball members on the pickleball club. If I get a pickle up app request, which means somebody's calling for a game, there's over 400 people on that list. So we have a lot of people that like to play pickleball in this town. And I think those needs are heard. They're not part of this discussion tonight when we're talking about what we're going to vote on, because these guys have put a lot of effort into what they're going to present to us for the sports complex. Pickleball is alive and well, and I think as a city, we will continue to move that forward. So I just don't want you all to have to sit here all night knowing that that's probably not going to be part of the discussion, and yet you've been heard loud and clear as far as I'm concerned, and I think the rest of the members as well. Okay, so I just want to let you know that. So in my opinion, you can leave if you want to. If you want to stay and listen to all the rest of this discussion, that's okay, but we definitely know that pickleball is on the radar, and we want to do something about that. I don't know when. So tonight, we're talking about the addition of Aquatic Center, which you've done a heck of a job making a lot better than it was last time. The other thing I really like about it, I also had never heard of the word natatorium before. I had to look it up because I wondered what in the world was that. So you're right, it's an aquatic center. It's well thought out. I like the way you can use the pool 2 different directions. And when I first looked at that, I thought, is that the way it's made? And you explained that tonight. That is true. I can almost smell the chlorinated water and feel the heat, the humidity, just looking at those pictures. I can feel it. So it's good. It's great. And it's what the community needs. What I also like is that the folks that helped design this heard at least my request, not to try to turn this into a fitness center where we've got all the other, treadmills and all the other pump and iron and all, because we got those things. Those things, we got people that are trying to make a living selling memberships for that. We don't need this aquatic center to be another fitness center, in my opinion. So I think that was heard, at least it appears that it was. What I don't know for sure, if this is the time to talk about our next one, but the clawbacks part, is that something that would be an appropriate time to talk about the clawbacks? Because I've asked our city attorney via handwritten note if we can just talk about those. I think we need to discuss those and understand what those clawbacks are in more detail than just black and white up here that we didn't really get to see.
So Mitch, to expand on your comment, if you go to section 5 in the proposed terms.
No, what I would almost like to do is, would it be okay if Carrie explains those to us? Because I just would like to hear a different perspective of it in her way. Not that you're going to say it wrong, but I just want to hear it through the
The
interpretation.
proposed clawbacks in these proposed terms were wholly with Sonia developed. Those have not been negotiated back and forth with the city. These are their proposals for
So
what
they have not
they
been-
think the clawbacks should be in their proposed terms. So,
Okay, so it's not.
so this is their, at least my understanding is this is how they're opening, these are their proposals. I would tell you we're not ready to bind in any capacity under these particular terms. There would need to be more work done.
Okay.
But this is their pitch.
Okay, so go ahead and pitch. Go ahead and run through it here.
Well, so The first clawback is subject to the minimum bond proceeds of the 77.5 and the 27.6. Obviously, if those come in less, then there needs to be a discussion, right? Because we have less funding available to us.
Okay.
So if Woodsonia would fail to deliver the Phase 1 infrastructure, the sports complex, the Eagle Scout Lake expansion, the amphitheater, 250 multifamily units and 20 single-family units, a hotel, a restaurant, and one additional commercial mixed-use user within 60 months of the closing, then we will convey any areas of the sale area or the land which have not commenced construction back to the city for $1. So essentially, we're going to convey this land back. So that's effectively what would be included in the 1A and 1B areas that we had proposed.
So in 5 years, your commitment would be to have all of that sports stuff done, the amphitheater. We want 250 rental units and 20 family single units in a 5-year period, correct? Which is going to be really, you're going to be doing that probably in a 2-year period because it's going to take so much time to get this thing ready to even start building.
Right.
So do you think you can, I mean, that's a commitment that you're making on paper, at least for now, to knock all that out in roughly 2 years, 2.5 years?
Yeah, that would be our proposal. Obviously, we'll have infrastructure, but that's going to be subject to keeping everything moving along through the process. But that would be our first clawback. The second clawback, if you read letter B, would be, again, based on a minimum bond proceeds of 77.5 and the 27.6. We would agree to complete one additional commercial mixed user beyond what was talked about in 5A, and an additional multifamily and single-family of 250 multifamily units, 20 single-family units by 2035. So if those don't get completed, if we get past Phase 5A, then obviously we would flip to Phase 5B. So if those items aren't completed, we would forfeit the remaining Good Life funding allocated for Phase 2 and 3 and convey back any undeveloped land back to the city or unactivated TIF areas.
Okay.
So essentially, anything that is benefiting us in the project, we would just convey back or terminate.
So what I'm hearing is something that's a very, very aggressive commitment. I mean, to me, from what you're saying, just in the housing alone, after we've already heard tonight that as of today, and I will support what I heard tonight, that our vacancy rate is up, and it's starting to creep up. And I think last time you were here, I told you about what's going on in Colorado Springs. So we're starting to see that. We're starting to see the market shift. And at the time that we're starting to see the market shift, barring other changes that will be coming, that's a pretty hefty agreement to put out there to build units that you're not even sure there's a market for. What do you do with that? I mean, that, to me, it's just kind of bizarre that you'd be that aggressive to build that much. Our needs on our last housing study was that we need roughly 300 units a year. We are already hitting that pretty much now. You're hitting it pretty hard there in that time period. And from the risk, you think that's a risk you're willing to take at this point? And this is just for you guys to really think about what you're building in a community that's already got developers with things going. In my little checklist in my drawer here, I've got another, counting your other commitment to Conestoga Marketplace.
Right. Yep.
You're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of housing units in a relatively short period of time.
Well, it's by
I don't know, is that what you want?
I think you got to look at it in the context, Mitch, of the time period that these phases are happening over. So these clawbacks cumulatively would span 10 years, right? That's 50 multifamily units a year based on these clawbacks. That's 4 single-family homes a year. And I think, I agree with you, Mitch, because you brought this up last time, and this is something we discussed pretty extensively with Chad, is we do want to put guardrails in there, right? So we're not going to go do 1,500 multifamily units or 291 single-family units in 1 year. That's what bullet point C exactly addresses. We won't do more than 100 units in any given year. We won't do more than 20 single-family units, right? So I do think that we are providing that guardrail. The other piece, though, Mitch, that I do think that we're kind of missing, but this was a key piece of our Good Life application with the state, is that this is workforce housing, okay? We're not competing with the luxury, right, homes that are going on lake lots that you see in some other areas of Grand Island. This is workforce housing. Mike Rogers, who's here, knows that a big piece of our TIF is being allocated to workforce housing, which has specific requirements of what that can be. So I think there's a key piece in the study that Grand Island completed in 2023, which everybody on this council, with the exception of Doug, was a participant on. There's estimated 700 to 1,100 workforce housing units that there's demand for in Grand Island that isn't being met. Why that isn't met, Mitch, is because you can't build them cost effectively and hit the rent targets and the sale targets that these folks need. That's exactly what we want to do as part of this project. We're not building luxury estates out here, right? So I think the challenge is, you're right. I mean, it is slowing down, vacancy is going up, but is there still demand for affordable workforce housing units? Yes. The challenge is, how do you build them, right? How do you actually deliver those homes that are $275,000 a year that folks can actually afford, right? And that's a key piece of what we want to do.
Well, and that's going to be probably a 1,000-square-foot home. That's probably what it's going to be, and that's not a bad thing, because that's what we're seeing built right now, a lot of 1,000, 1,100-square-foot homes going for $275,000 to $300,000. Housing costs for construction are not going to go down. Housing values, barring a Lexington situation like we saw there, are not going to go down. So we're going to see those prices continue to rise. It's just, as I see these clawbacks, and it's your clawbacks, it's one thing to commit yourself to a construction dedicated to meeting your clawbacks, but my question is, you can go build the houses. We did our job, but now they're sitting vacant. Now that's on you. You guys are trying to figure out, what do we do? It's just one of those things that I hope that you've thought through well, because to me, I think it's a big haul, but again, it's your commitment, and hopefully, that type of thing works out, because that's a lot.
But I think part of it is, Mitch, you're saying, hey, this is a lot up front, guys, but we need to create a development in a neighborhood where people want to live.
Understood.
Right? Like, if you drive up and look at that piece of property today, I probably wouldn't select it and say, this is exactly where I want to build a master plan development in Grand Island. That's why I think we have to look at it and say, we've got to do the lake expansion. We've got to bring in the aquatics facility, bring in the sports bring in other components, the restaurant, the hotel, so it doesn't feel like you're on the very edge of Grand Island and nobody wants to live up there. So,
well, I think it's very aggressive, especially with the other competition that's here in town for building, and also your commitment to marketplace for your 200, 300 plus that you've got there. That's 300 housing units that somebody will be living in that's not going to live out where you're wanting to build. So it's interesting when I'm looking at the clawbacks, and of course that burden falls on you. And so I get it, but I just wanted to know if what we thought about it tonight, what you thought about it. Looks like our city attorney has some thoughts on it as well, maybe.
I think I'd note that the difference between these being proposed terms to start a conversation and the actual clawbacks is very important for council to consider. For example, the proposed clawbacks don't address the aquatic center at all. They don't trigger as long as construction has commenced, but don't define what that means, and would never trigger if the bonds were short even $1. So these would require fine-tuning to make sure the city's best interest is actually protected. So they're great starting points for the spirit of those clawbacks, but they would not be actual clawbacks that we could recommend.
Okay, that's fair. But we're the discussion phase. That's what we're wanting to do tonight, overall, general discussion, okay. So what we're going to talk about tonight, again, what we're voting on right now is the addition of the aquatics, some of the things that you've proposed here as well, the clawbacks that we've got. The only thing I'm going to ask you here, which might go into the next discussion, would be when you, as a developer, do you use local builders to build what's being built, or do you have a group of people that work exclusively with you when you're doing stuff like this?
I would tell you, talk to Roger Bollington on who we used for Conestoga and the local subs that we utilized. I mean, that's probably a better source than us standing up here saying we're going to use local subs, right? We just completed a very large project and utilized local subs, local contractors on that project. So yes, that would be the intent, Mitch, but fortunately we do have our general contractor here tonight, who I believe also utilized local subs on that project.
I think to clarify, we would use a local contractor or subs unless we didn't feel like they could handle the scope of a certain part of the project.
Yeah.
And I have no reason to believe that Chief wouldn't be able to do that, but so.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, I understand what I'm voting on at this point anyway, and I'm sure the next one will bring more discussion.
I was looking at your proposed terms, and I found 5C confusing to me, and I thought I'd just ask you to clarify. What you're saying is that in no event will Woodsonia deliver more than 100 multifamily units and 20 single-family homes on a cumulative annual basis, meaning that's the most you'll build in any given year. Because the next sentence I thought was a little confusing, so I just wanted to clarify that it's 100 multifamily and 20 single-family in any given year.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Oh, I see.
It
I think
should
that's
say
a-
multifamily,
Yeah,
not
sorry, I think
single-family.
that's not typed correctly.
It was Carrie's job to spell check this.
Please vote. Motion adopted.
9C, authorize staff to move forward with negotiating a development contract subject to the amended Good Life District application submitted by Woodsonia Highway 281 LLC. Mr. Nabity?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, now you have the complete application before you because you have just amended it with the previous items. This would be to authorize city staff to, based on the terms here, Mitch, you mentioned the clawbacks. This provides a framework for city staff to move forward with a development agreement. We had several people testify about TIF. This does not approve TIF. This is still subject to all of the approvals that would be necessary for TIF, all of the approvals that may be necessary for an EEA if council wants to move that direction. So all of those things are still going to come forward. Pat Brown and I have talked about this numerous times, and we're anticipating that over the course of the next 2 years, every 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to see something on this project. Because there are a lot of decisions that will have to be made moving forward, but this gives us clear direction of what we are supposed to negotiate and what we're supposed to bring back to you, and does it in a very public manner that is appropriate for this body and for this kind of decision. So with that, what we're asking for is you have their proposed term sheet. We know it's not exactly what we want. It probably isn't exactly what they want, but it will give us the ability to bring a contract forward that would then start that process for issuing bonds that would start the clock ticking on those, and all of the things that would happen in the future with that. The other thing that it does, and probably one of the most important things that it does, is it sends a clear, positive message to our legislature and governor that this project is moving forward and that we have a good plan on how we're going to move it forward as they go into session in January.
So this, if approved, will set forth the broad outline of how city staff can then go back and fill in the details.
Exactly. And to Ms. Fisk's concerns, the clawbacks won't look exactly like this. We need to let the attorneys wordsmith this and make sure that it's something that's defensible and enforceable, but it gives us some broad parameters to operate within.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Move we approve 2025 TAC 421.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Stell?
I second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Haas, we have speakers again, so.
Are any of you that signed up before, do you want to speak again? You guys marked both of them. Okay, Pat O'Neill, if you want to come on up.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I want to thank Woodsonia for bringing this forward and for mayor and council and city administration that's worked very hard on this. The original agreement had a full YMCA in it. This one has a pool, and part of the reason is in the last two legislative sessions, the legislature has taken an axe to this program twice. So I'm very happy. We've got a very top-rate pool. I'm very glad. Thanks to both Mitch and Ryan and the 9,000 hours of phone calls and everything else we've done. But my point to that is you delay it again and go through another legislative session, you don't know what you're getting. I would just like to point out there's a little expediency to this. And from an aquatic standpoint, that facility has about 95% of what we were looking for. It is fantastic. It looks gorgeous. It should be able to fit the needs of the community for 20, 30 years to come. There was a commenter earlier who had mentioned that he was concerned about the railroad tracks next to the pool. I would tell you that's not a concern of mine. We've had a pool next to railroad tracks for 50 years. It's been fine. And once again, I did not look at a lot of the financing aspects of this, but the one thing I would say is you have a developer right now who has a track record at Conestoga Marketplace where they came in, they said, we're going to do this, and they did it. To Mitch's question about, will they use local contractors? I don't know if they used all of them, but I know that I recognize a lot of the faces on that job site. And as far as developers go, they're really pretty nice guys.
That's nice.
You're welcome. But I do want to say this. If you went back 4 years in the past and two people came into this room and said they were going to redevelop your mall, build a movie theater with a bowling alley and an arcade attached, sell a bunch of lots, and not selling cheap lots, but sell them to banks and Chick-fil-A, and they were going to get you a Target, and they were going to build you a pool and a sports complex and expand your lake and build trails, none of us would have believed them. And here we are 30% of the way into that progress. And I think the results are remarkable, not just from my own self-serving interest as someone involved in aquatics or as a contractor, but you look at the problems that they have addressed for the city of Grand Island, and if they get this thing off the ground and rolling, and Mitch said it well, this is a very aggressive schedule they've set for themselves, and I'm full favor and support of it. Thank you, guys.
Roger Bullington.
Thank you, Council. I just kind of want to echo a little bit what Mr. Pat O'Neill said. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our experience was at Chief Construction and working with Woodsonia on the Conestoga Marketplace. They've been very, very good to work with. has everything been smooth and that sort? No, when you repurpose them all and go through the multiple phases that had to do, relocating tenants, dealing with tenants that weren't committed to Grand Island and was still just trying to do a money grab from the developers, and we know which two of those are, that they got paid out on and then didn't redo a site here in Grand Island. That it's very hard to be a developer, and there's a lot of problems. But what we did at Conestoga Mall literally will be a case study for national magazines to do. And a lot of it had to do with what you guys just did with the leadership, with terminating the lease. We had a zombie mall on our hands. It was a zombie mall. Now look at it out there. It's absolutely wonderful. The thing with the city and Woodsonia and us as contractors and subcontractors, of which most all the subcontractors were all local, we were able to deliver the pad site for Target 6 months early. So what did that mean? That meant that we'd have 6 months early of a 2% city sales tax of probably $50 to $80 million worth of that store is gonna take in. So the excess city sales tax just for those 6 months, if it could have been anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000 just by getting them, and that has to be. It's because of the city working together, the building department, the contractors, subcontractors, and the developers. With the way this is going forward on the Good Life District in essentially doing a master developer, everybody says, well, you should have chopped it up and that stuff. I've done a lot of developments. We've developed in 7 different communities. This is the proper way to do it. If you have too many of them, too many cooks in the kitchen, things don't work out right. And so in looking at this business strategy and this business model and moving forward in this manner is the correct way, in my opinion and experience. To do a successful development like this and this big of a development, you need all 3 components. You need retail, you need entertainment, and you need housing. And all of them kind of have to work together. You can't be really successful in doing one part of it without the other. Look at out of Prairie Commons right now. We got the healthcare component. With the help of Prairie District, we got the housing component. But, it's hard to get. We're a food desert out there, and we're struggling getting bars and restaurants out there. Some of it's probably due to the huge success of Conestoga Marketplace, and they would prefer to be there, and that's fine. We're going to overcome that. But it all comes down to everybody working together and improving the community. And so we'll work towards improving each section of these developments as the developer. As Pat O'Neill and Chad had mentioned, time is of the essence. I hate to say that, but it really is. I'll give you an example, and it's through no fault of our own, of anybody's, because who knew that the state legislature would have changed this and capping, what was $8 million down to $5 million. That $3 million over 30 years, if you do it a net present value at 5%, the net present value of what they did to this community was take $46 million of net present value from this community. I don't think any of us want to risk what they're going to do potentially to this program. And so I'm really recommending that we approve this, move it forward, have the lawyers kick shins later, fine-tune it. Now, one thing about a Good Life District with this, with their Phase 1 and Phase 2 funding, it's $105 million. If we can't get all the infrastructure built and the aquatic center and the sports complex and, hit all the major parts and get that approved, then shame on us as a community, as business leaders, as supporters for you guys to support this. Yeah. We need a new YMCA. That should be the first thing this community does after the Good Life District gets approved and this aquatic center gets out there. We ought to support the new CEO out there and get a fundraising for the YMCA. The sports complex, you know, Mitch and Drew don't want to hear this, but the sports complex that we're building at a city that's twice the size as Kearney, our sports complex is half the size that they're proposing here. Now they've got consultants and everything say that, you know, that we're going to get it done. But really, for me, for a pride purpose, and what I'd like to do right after we get this all approved, then we look at building a field house out there, you know, to complement the sports complex. We can do that through other community fundraising or some other programs. But delays in this type of funding mechanism, which was a huge godsend, delays kill development and they kill projects. So I encourage you to do that. But I also want to thank the mayor and the city council for you guys' role in the hard decisions that you made in the Conestoga marketplace. This is another project that we can all rally around and make it a successful community project. And I'd love to have your support. Thank you.
Jay, would you like to speak again?
Thank you, Jill. Well, maybe just a step back and look, I guess I would ask each one of you, would you want to go ahead and look back 5 years ago and have the Conestoga Mall as it is then today? Would we want to go ahead and envision the Veterans Home as it was 5 years ago, 30 years from now? And no. Indeed, this is a giant opportunity that also does so much more than recreation and giving youth an opportunity to enjoy themselves and any number of different things and future potential housing. But you got to remember, people need jobs. The materials that will be purchased, the sales tax that will be provided from that, all the jobs, the tradesmen, the future opportunities to attract visitors. I mean, you just go on and on. The concept of this is something that anyone probably could have done, but no one did, except for the initiative and now the risk potentially by Wasonia. So secondly, when I look at the application in the packet, I am just completely impressed. The complexity and all the different things that are in that agreement right now just show that indeed we have the expertise on city staff to go ahead and negotiate in good faith, I think, going forward. And that's what this vote means, I think, before you today. And with that, once again, you know, if you don't know where you're going to go, any road will take you there. Well, we know the road we want to take. You want a successful destination based on this redevelopment opportunity, that we're one of 5 communities in the state of Nebraska that have even the opportunity to envision. So I would hope that once again, with your leadership, just commend you, the city staff, the initiative with Sonia, but this is a giant step that we'll go ahead and we'll look back upon. And in closing, someone once said, the true meaning of life is planting a tree that you don't get the opportunity to sit under it. And maybe all of us are going to be in that same situation. But this is the type of vision that will go ahead and be something that we'll all be proud of for each of our grandkids and future opportunities to draw more people and have a better paying job and enjoy life here. Thank you, Mayor Steele. And once again, thank you for each one of your leadership and city staff very much.
Scott Reef, did you want to speak again? Okay.
Mr. Hossie.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I go back, I used to look at the Conestoga Mall before they did the development, and we had 60 million in net taxable sales, and it wasn't very much longer after that. I looked down there, there's like 10 million in net taxable sales. So you saw the ghost town that it was becoming, you know, and the drop of net taxable sales, and now you see it coming back. Now you see what Sonia has done to the Conestoga marketplace. It is something that you will be proud of, and Grand Island is proud of it, and it'll help our retail sales for sure. The delay part is really concerning to me because this started off like back with voter referendum back in August, and it was overwhelming that we need to move forward with this. But part of our delay problem, and I call it paralysis by analysis. We have been analyzing this thing so much that I don't think the minimum wage laws applies to the council anymore. I know that a lot of us on the council have spent more hours in the last 2 years studying this more than we probably studied any other topic in this thing. So we have been analyzing the stuffings out of it, and I think we have a wonderful product. I think it is, this achieves the spirit of everything that we're trying to get done. Now, I'm sure there's still details out there, but what I tell you, with contracts that we issue for 1% of this amount, we're putting in change orders. You know, change order is a natural thing in city government, and particularly with contracts. This is a 30-year project. It isn't going to be perfect right from the get-go. We're going to figure it out. And I think everybody has the right intentions here. The housing, I'm glad the housing was spread out over 20 years because I think the community is growing. We have wonderful things going on here. We have a lot of momentum. And even though there might be housing vacancy today, I have no crystal ball what it's going to do over the next 20 years, but for what I'm seeing and what I'm seeing the growth in Grand Island, it will absorb all that. It'll absorb what we have vacant now. It'll absorb what we're going to be putting into the market. But the 20 years gives the community time to grow into it. You know, and so I'm very comfortable with that. I'm grateful for the aquatic solution. I think for, you know, our whole last meeting was, you know, like consumed with aquatics conversation. And I'm like, we're talking about 2% of the project, you know, and so, but we got a solution. But that's what we needed to do. We needed to work through that piece. But the conversation to the solution happened really quick this time. And so there's no more delays. So I'm grateful that we're here at this point, and I'm glad to support this. I am just thankful that Woodsonia had the vision to start this whole process. This opportunity of the Good Life District, as supported by our citizens, it's an opportunity of a lifetime for Grand Island. And I think it mixes quite well with all of the other great things that we are doing here. We saw the thing about, you know, just what this community is doing. I'm just thinking this is just one more step in the momentum we have of the wonderful community we're building and continue to build. So thank you.
Mr. O'Neill?
I have quite a bit I want to say, but I want to get through one thing first before I do that, so I'll probably speak again a little bit later. Although I may be often confused for when I'm not a lawyer, so bear with me here. I move that Resolution 25-421 be amended to add the following paragraph. Be it further resolved that city staff should incorporate the feedback, commitments, and concessions discussed at City Council on December 9th, 2025 into their negotiation authorities, into a development contract, and other legal documents, and must take all efforts to negotiate terms and agreements that protect the city's best interest and are consistent with the goals contained in the city's Good Life District Economic Development Program as outlined in Grand Island City Code, Chapter 38, Article 2. Check.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, I can still discuss. Okay, I didn't know if we had to vote on that or not first. So, okay.
Talk about the amendment.
You have to talk about the amendment first.
Of why we're amending? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so the reason why we're wanting to do this is we've talked a lot tonight, and you kind of heard me talking to Mitch and Drew a little bit earlier about some of the things we're talking about with, you know, allowing us to be able to, I know the partner here with the Y wanted to build a building. We don't want to have to jump through a lot of hoops to do that. Or going over about the RFP to manage the athletic complex, or talk about, you know, their funding contributions, if we ever want to make any other facility improvements, or if someone wants to donate money to another building out here. We just want to get that feedback in here, and you guys may have other feedback that you want to talk about in the meeting as well that could still be considered in this, but this is a chance for us to include more in there when we negotiate a future development contract that we'd still have to do to finish building anything here as well. That's really the intent in this, is we're just trying to include as much input as we can to negotiate some of these other details. We didn't really have a chance to negotiate much more of what they sent over in their update. There's just a few tweaks that I wanted to go through and make that clear tonight, and we got a little bit of input from Mitch and Drew on that as well. That's my intent.
Mr. Brown?
Well, I think this is a golden opportunity for Grand Island, and, it's never going to come around again. And I agree wholeheartedly with Ryan's amendment here, and I'm 100% for it.
Mr. Sheard?
Thank you. On the amendment, Ryan, am I allowed to ask him a question? Or who?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And maybe Mrs. Fisk can.
Maybe I can ask you the question. So,
An amendment is debatable, so you can debate amongst yourselves.
okay. So is this amendment's purpose that what we see right now, we're going to actually have opportunities to continue a conversation about with the details?
And Carrie might help clarify this a little bit too, but if there's details that we discussed tonight with Sony, especially the things that they have agreed upon, those should be things that we should be able to change in a development contract.
Okay, like I pointed out in the
Right.
proposal, that there was a confusing sentence, and they corrected it from the podium. That correction made in the open meeting can be included in the contract negotiations, even though it's not written down. That's things like that.
But if it's a thing like the pickleball folks that wanted to see pickleball put into their facility, is that a thing that we can still talk about, or is that not a continuing negotiation? And maybe that's a question for you guys too. If we pass this resolution and say we're going to continue to negotiate, and we're going to then pass the rest of this, how much are you guys going to be willing to change on any of this, such as the pickleball, such as some of the concerns about housing, some of those things? How much of that are you?
Yeah, I think on the pickleball, I think we feel very confident. We hired a great consultant that's going to drive tourism to the sports complex, and right now we don't have pickleball in there. We're going to leave to Mitch's exhibit that was handed out. There's going to be space available, so if there's other folks that want to bring forward and say, hey, we have the pickleball club here has raised $10 million and we want to do enclosed pickleball facility, there will be ground set aside that will be city retained.
So let's say it's $10 million. And I'm going to bust your balls here a little bit, and I apologize, but we've got people saying we don't need all this housing, but we're going to give $10 million towards housing. But we got people that say we do want some other things here, including operational money and things like that. But we're not including that when we have this grand opportunity where we actually have that money. Instead, we're going to say, go out and raise more. I agree that it would be, your changes so far, I love them, actually. I think there's more that could happen, but this is fantastic. I love this 190,000 square foot area and the parking. This is great. I question the math on some of the soccer fields. You made them smaller and there was more of them. I don't know what that means. What I'm wondering is, how do we get to that beautiful potential thing that Roger talked about? Where's that money come from?
I think some of these things, I think one of the challenges with these good life districts is we can't, from the developer side, we can't grant what everybody wants. At some point, you do have to say no. And so I think we've worked really hard. We've spent over 2 years on this, received lots and lots of feedback, went through the whole confluence plan, went through all that whole process. So I think from our perspective, Jack, at some point, we have to just say no. We need to move forward with the terms that we've drafted and proposed. I think to Chuck's point, is this thing going to be perfect? And does that mean in 3 years from now or 6 years from now, we need to come back to council and say, hey, this isn't working like we thought. We got to change this. I mean, that's just part of being in development.
Sure,
and
sure.
so there's got to be fluid. But I think for us, based on just all the time that we've spent and the process we've gone through, we don't want to continue to make changes and delay the process.
So the answer
So
to,
our
are we
answer-
actually going to negotiate any of these things beyond some of the little typos is no.
Right. We would like to move forward with these terms as drafted.
There's clarifications, Jack, like what Ryan asked of, can we set aside, are we sure there's a set aside? Yes, like we do want to clarify that, and we're okay with that. I think that's kind of the intent of this resolution. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but in terms of.
Well,
of
yeah,
agreeing-
in particular, a lot of the ones that I discussed tonight were about allowing other external partners to be able to come in.
Yeah.
Specifically like a wire, other group like that. I want to make sure we're not painting ourselves in a corner. And also about the RFP approval for the complex operators. Another thing I talked about as well, I think we would like to have the sole authority of that.
That's something you guys will negotiate with.
I think we would be open to discussing it, but I think as we're thinking about it, we're doing another very similar project to this. And I think there just has to be mechanisms where if we don't feel like the facility is being managed correctly, that we get an opportunity to come talk to the city about that. And, because we're going to have a huge investment out here. And so, yes, it is going to be city-owned, but we're invested with the city. We want this to be as successful as possible. And so, and a lot of this is going to come down to the operator. I mean, at the end of the day, we can design the most amazing facility in the world, but if it's not operated correctly, that's going to be our biggest challenge. So to answer your question, Jack, I would say that's not a hard no, but I think it's let's further discuss this. We don't necessarily have to iron out these exact details at this
I would
meeting.
say this, Ryan, for purposes of that point, right, what I would probably propose and Carrie, I'll get your thoughts on this too, is we don't want to agree to that outright tonight, Ryan, but we also don't want to say no. We're not going to do that. So what I think we would propose on that point in particular is give us an opportunity over the next 30 days as we get to the contract to talk with staff of what guardrails, can we put in that we're comfortable with to this redevelopment contract so we know there is some level of assurance that this is going to be managed.
And what we're saying is this will put this, the city staff will continue to be talking to you guys between now and a development contract.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying is the staff can incorporate this feedback into that discussion with you guys prior.
Yeah, and honestly, we probably want to get our consultant involved to say, Norm, what do we need to be looking for from both the city's perspective and the developer? I mean, their organization doesn't operate facilities, so they're a complete neutral third party, and I think they would have some great recommendations that we should consider.
So another item in there with the land conveyance that you're going to get all of the land minus the things that are going to be city-owned that you mentioned, the sports area. I didn't see anything mentioned in there about the land that was dedicated to a potential elementary school. So is that land that we will also hold back that you're not going to get right away, or is there going to be what's the plan for that? I didn't see anything in the plan about that.
That's in our, and you got to remember, this is just supplementing our application, right? So it's only changing points that are being modified. The conveyance to Grand Island Public Schools is still addressed in our contract or our application. So we will dedicate that to Grand Island Public Schools for $1. It's the area shown here on the plan. Otherwise, Jack, the ground lease area that we would lease and then convey back to the city, and then the land acquisition area is shown here, but that would subsequently be dedicated to Grand Island Public Schools.
That is all the comments I have on the amendment.
Mr. Nickerson.
My question is for Carrie. When I look at this before us, it says authorize staff to move forward with negotiating a development contract subject to the amended Good Life District application submitted by Woodsonia Highway 281 LLC. Do we need an amendment in order to address the stuff tonight, or is it inferred in that statement?
The amended application right now includes the application materials they've submitted, and this new amendment, it does not incorporate these, what I'll call concessions discussions tonight. This would let us kind of incorporate those discussions within our authority. Otherwise, we're tied to the written docs for our authority. So it'd kind of be the soft edges we need to not be too tied, but also not be coming back to you for the next 6 months, kind of negotiating towards perfect instead of good,
Okay,
so.
So it's a good thing then, you're saying? It's okay to do it? It's okay to say okay. It's okay to do it, okay? I mean, it's not going to hurt anything, right? And I would just say, Brian seems to be really stuck on this ownership of the complex. I don't think I would fall on my sword on that, because I understand this is your baby, and there is no reason why you don't want that to be successful, because the whole entire Good Life District is based on bringing in additional people into this state. Why would I, as a city, want to take on that burden when it's your burden? Because that's what you committed to. And so, yeah, we want to help you get there. We all want to be successful. But this is your baby, and I think you want to see it grow up and be just as healthy and athletic as it can be. So I don't see myself wanting to get in the middle of that mess, because this is the foundation of the whole Good Life District.
Right.
So that's, I don't understand why we'd want to fall on our sword on that, but I don't know all the arguments on that. As far as the amendment, I just needed some advice from our attorney to make sure it's not making things any more complex, because then my next statement on the next motion, on the real motion, then I'll have a question pertaining to that, but this is just for the amendment. So I will support it based on advisement from our counsel here.
Okay, so this is voting on the amendment. Motion adopted.
Mr. Sheard?
Thank you. Back to the now amended original motion. My questions, I guess, I want to talk about housing, because I think the sports complex, I think the aquatic center is fantastic. I appreciate everybody's work on getting there. You guys listened to that from last time clearly, so good job. The housing I still have some issues with, so on the clawbacks, my question, I guess, the first one for you guys, come on back up. Come on. You can stand a little longer. What are you going to do with all of the land right away that you aren't building on? Because you're buying the land for $1. Are you going, what's your plan with it until it's developed?
I think it would just be developed as market demand unfolds, Jack.
I mean, we'd leave it in like a preliminary platted state, just like any other master plan development project that we've done. There'd be components of it that would just sit idle for a period of time and then be developed over time.
Will you put a lien against it in any way?
Yeah, it depends on, I mean, once we have a structure, then I think we can start really talking seriously to lenders about how this gets financed and the best way to structure it. But it could potentially have some sort of mortgage or lien on it, yeah.
So once that happens and we get into a clawback, let's say something happens and you guys can't proceed, how do we get it back if there's a lien on it?
We did file a lien, Jack. It would be subordinate to this redevelopment contract, which would be recorded against the property. So that lender would be subject to these clawbacks.
So we still get it back for the $1.
Correct.
We don't owe anything.
It's no different than like a tax lien. You know, like a tax lien would take priority over like a mortgage lien. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier you're going to be trying to make some houses at $275,000. That number came up. Is that about what you want to do?
Yeah, it'll be a mix of, duplexes, fourplexes, single family. Yep.
So those, Mitch said in jest, that's 1,000 square feet, but really what is it?
I think we submitted some plans as part of our application. Those probably aren't available tonight, but general footprints. So I think that'd be anywhere between 1,200 to 1,800 square feet.
For 275,000?
Depending on the exact unit.
The price is going to go up and down depending on square footage, yeah.
What would it, if Scott builds a house like that, what's he going to charge?
I have to ask Scott.
Yeah, I don't know.
To his comment that you're getting quite a bit of incentive here for housing, you acknowledge that that is a pretty big advantage over someone just using TIF.
Yes, no, Jack. I mean, you got to look at, we have a lot more infrastructure here that we're funding than any other typical project. I mean, Eagle Scout Lake is not a small feat. But I would say, I mean, look at Staraska's deal, by example, right? That's going on off 13th Street. Look at the price points there, right? I think probably build a little bit smaller homes, but their average price point is what, 400, I would say on those. That's not workforce housing, right? So I think our goal is to be able to cater to that, and that's going to require a subsidy.
But is it going to be a comparable house?
Yeah, I would think that we're building a comparable quality house that ultimately needs to sell, right?
Comparable size?
Yeah, I think we gave the sizes.
So you're going to sell a $275,000 house that somebody else is selling for $400,000.
Well, I have no idea. We don't know what the market will
Roughly,
dictate. I
right,
mean,
roughly.
the market could be slow today. Interest rates could drop. The Fed's talking about dropping interest rates, which will completely change the dynamics of the affordability of housing. That's exactly what Chuck's talking about. I mean, to say we're going to take a snapshot in time and this is what it's going to be for the next 28 or 30 years, it's impossible. I mean, so I can tell you this, our proposal, and we talked about this extensively at the study session, we need housing up here. We need housing up here. We need density up here. We need to establish a neighborhood. That takes risks. Those are aggressive clawbacks. So we need to get people living up here. And so does that compete with the local market? It will. But this is also a slow burn. I mean, we're not talking about dropping 1,000 units on the ground in 4 years. That's flooding the market. This is, I mean, we talked extensively with Chad Navity about this. This is slowly phasing in the housing. And so, I mean, we could sit here and argue about this all day long, but I think at the end of the day, our whole point is we need to get residents up here living. And if that means it has to get subsidized in the get-go, in the early stages, then that may be what has to happen. Is that the plan long-term? Absolutely not. So that's not what our plan would be. So I think we need to establish a neighborhood and we need to get some density. We can't afford for this to take 30 years. We need this thing to move along. I mean, Prairie Commons, ask Roger, I don't know how long that's been going on, but it's probably been 15, 20 years. I mean, this stuff just takes time. So we want to supercharge this development and get things moving quickly.
So one of the things in this plan, and maybe this is a question for you guys, maybe it's for Carrie, maybe it's for Pat, maybe it's for Chad. So we aren't approving TIF tonight. We aren't approving anything other than this. And we can't, as a council, approve or promise that another council is going to approve those things. You understand that?
I think we want the council to know that's part of the capital stack. So if you ultimately decide to decline that 60 days from now, then the project, from our perspective, wouldn't move forward. So we just want to be crystal clear. We want to be very transparent.
So we are approving TIF tonight.
In a roundabout way, yes.
But we're not voting on that tonight.
Correct.
Right. It's kind of confusing. It's okay. My next question, I think I'm crossing them out here. We've gone through a lot. So I appreciate you guys standing up here and taking the beating again. My question, I guess, is for administration. I'm not saying I'm saying no. If we said no, what happens? I think it's important for us to know what happens if we were to say no.
Well, there's several options. They could come back and with a new proposal, I would imagine, and Carrie can correct me if I'm wrong here. We can also put out an RFQ for a project developer. City could start the infrastructure. Another possibility. So if the city did the infrastructure, and it would just be on the, I guess, the east side, not the housing side, then, you know, city could put out an RFP for a sports complex, RFP for aquatic center, so on and so forth. So definitely, the city definitely would not be into the housing development.
And obviously, that would slow us down considerably, just a little bit. I still think you guys are our best shot. I've said that all along. But I think some of the things we've heard, both sides, this is maybe the toughest vote I've been a part of in my 3 years on council. This is a little bit harder than chickens, guys. I mean, this is such a drastic decision. But I do appreciate you guys going through it all. That does mean something, and I'm going to shut up for a little bit.
Mr. Nickerson.
I think the plan that we have before us is a good plan, and as you said, it's not everything's perfect. But in order for it to fit, all these components need to be there, and I understand that. And as a realtor, I have a little feel on what's going on in the market. I'm not in-depth involved anymore like I used to be, but I look at homes every day to see what's available. I counsel people if they want it. I help people. I help FSBOs. I help whatever is needed. But I'm not out there beating the pavement looking for business right now. But I do have a very strong interest in the housing market and what's going on. I agree that you need what you need to make this project successful with the housing, and it's important. And I'm not going to get hung up on all the subsidies or whatever, however we want to look at that, because Grand Island's success over the last many, many years has been through TIF, and primarily through TIF on a lot of our big developments. And yours goes maybe a little bit beyond that, but you're also building something much larger, much grander than some of the other things. Now, as a developer, if I were a developer, I'd be fussing a little bit too tonight. I probably would, because yeah, it doesn't look like it's fair. But we've been fair with our developers as well over the last many, many years on the projects that they've done and been very successful at with the tools they've requested. And we will probably continue to do that. We just need to make sure that we are not flooding the market. I appreciate you metering in the housing units, because even at 120 a year, that still meets more than a third, more than likely, of what we need, but it's also the mix, and you have to be able to rent them, and you have to be able to sell them. So from a developer's standpoint that might be fussing about this, you got a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk involved in this, and the developers here know that because they've been involved in risk as well. But I will tell you that there are new homes on the market right now that have been sitting there for 10 months. Some of them are in the Copper Creek. 10 months, brand new construction. We have other brand new constructed homes that have been on the market 2 and 3 years, never had one person move into them yet. So there is a risk involved. You will be taking on that risk just like these other developers did as they built these homes, and they've been sitting on them for 10 months right now, and some of them are less than $300,000. You've made a commitment. And I would also say to developers that are concerned, there was an opportunity for applications for good life districts, but I think Woodsonia is probably the only one that came forward. Is that correct, Patrick? That's the only one we've got. So we didn't have anybody else knocking on the door. So we've got a group here that's proven their success with Conestoga Marketplace and shown, as others have said tonight, you say what you're going to do and you're going to do what you say. I believe that. This is a tall order. It's a tall order, and I think it's something that we need to support tonight. Jack was asking the question, well, what happens if we say no? You know, and Patrick gave the options, what things we can do. But the other thing that we've already talked about tonight, we start another legislative session, and who knows what that does. So we have a good product, I think. Is it the absolute best probably not, but it's going to be tweaked as we go. Which brings me to my question for maybe Chad or whoever else, because it says this allows us to move forward with negotiating a development contract. And I think Chad made the inference about could discuss things that are in the contract, but what if there's a dispute or still a major disagreement in the negotiating process? Do you foresee that? And if that does happen, what happens?
I think what happens is we bring the contract to council and you make the decision at that point. But we negotiate in good faith based on the discussions tonight and based on what is in the application. But ultimately, approval of that contract will be between you and Woodsonia if you authorize this. Staff, we may have opinions, but we don't get to make a decision and we're not signing it. So what you would be doing is authorizing the mayor to sign that contract on behalf of the city based on the terms that are in that contract. And I anticipate we will have a development contract that will handle the Good Life District portion of this, and we will have a redevelopment contract that will go to the CRA for all of the TIF portions of it, so that instead of like we did with Conestoga Marketplace, where we had a three-way contract with the city, the CRA, and Woodsonia, we will have two contracts, one between the city and Woodsonia and one between the CRA and Woodsonia, so that if there are amendments that need to be made to those contracts, when there are amendments that need to be made to those contracts, let me correct that, it only has to go to a single entity that has dealt with that contract before, unlike back in September when council had to sign off on amending the contract for Woodsonia for Conestoga Marketplace, even though it was really the redevelopment contract in TIF. So that would be, hopefully that answered your question, Mitch.
Okay, because there may be some negotiating that still needs to take place, it sounds like. I mean, some fine tuning and some.
I definitely think there will.
Yeah, very good. All right. I just want to touch base here on the vacancy issue, which is unusual over the last maybe year or so, maybe to see that vacancy rate go up. But I'm also going to put the blame, and I don't want to call it blame, a little bit on some developers who have decided to go into other communities and build nice housing units, which allowed people that were living in Grand Island to move back to the community in which they're working, which left vacancies in Grand Island. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm just going to say that when you start building in other communities and you have people living in Grand Island going to those communities, we just opened up our own vacancies because we built housing units in those communities, and these folks are now able to move back to the town where they work. So part of that's our own fault. I don't know how many, but we've got, what, do you have one other thing there?
I just wanted to put on the record, as of October 31st, we have issued 122 permits for 122 units in 2025. So the housing study said we need almost 300 a year. Last year was one of our best years, and we were at 226. I don't know that we've ever hit 300 in any given year in my time here, even though that would be our ideal number. We've gotten close to that, but we haven't actually done that. So those numbers are, this year, we're probably running 150 units short of what would be projected.
Yeah, we still have a pretty healthy vacancy rate right now in certain housing units.
We do, and there have been things in the economy that have changed and uncertainties with the situation across the entire United States that I think have impacted some of those things.
Yeah, and I guess we've talked about what's been approved on TIF already. We have hundreds of housing units just waiting for that magic number, either interest rate-wise or, to Mr. Reef's point, when he sees the need to pull the trigger on that. You know, last time he was up here, he saw a need for that, but obviously things have changed. And some of that sometimes is of our own making, I think. Anyway, I do support the project. It is a good one. And I think we would be foolish not to move forward with it tonight, just for all the reasons we've talked about. Delay can kill projects, and we have an awful lot going on here. And we still have some room for some negotiating of some things, and we want to surely take advantage of that.
Mr. O'Neill?
I just want to comment on a few more things here tonight. First, I'd like to thank all you guys for being here. I mean, you've been hanging in a long time tonight, and I know a lot of you traveled from a long ways. Not everyone made it this far in the meeting. Really like to thank you, Scott Reef, as well. You're a model citizen. You've done a lot of great things in this community, too. And I just want you to know some of the decisions we make sometimes in this, there might always be someone, not 100% of everyone's going to like every part of everything that we do, and just know a lot of what we're doing sometimes is very tough. And I just want to explain the logic that I use here. I have to stay rational when I do these things. I'm trying to think of what decision is going to benefit more people. And believe me, I've spent so much time doing analysis on this. I've been back and forth on the phone, on my computer. We hear from a lot of people. I know everyone wants a lot of things. And I'm just trying to make, we can't get lost in a cycle of trying to accommodate all the ideas and details. But I'm trying really hard to make this the best that we can. And it's very challenging. And sometimes I look up and said, I know you're testing me, big guy. It's been tough out there sometimes, but we're working hard. Tonight, we really have a couple of choices. I want to expand a little bit on what Pat was saying as well. When Mitch asked, or I can't remember, Mitch or Jack asked him what would happen if we didn't do this. Obviously, it's going to take more time. I'd probably say years of more time. And the other thing I want to expand about too is if we don't have, this is a package deal. If we just built those facilities, you don't have the retail, it's going to cost the city more to pay those operating and maintenance costs of these facilities. So I have to really kind of break this down and look at the math. And I think there's only one option the math really clearly supports. And when the numbers point to the strongest opportunity, the rational choice is to move forward and not wait for the perfect option that may never come and risks losing everything. And if we get tied down to too many details, that's how progress can stall and opportunities disappear. If we approve it now, we unlock the Good Life program dollars, and that means a large share of sales tax, money that would normally go and stay in Lincoln, comes here instead to help us build the new aquatic center, the athletic complex, and a lot of other enhancements to other athletics here. This money would not normally be ours if it was not for this Good Life project. The commercial pieces the developer builds alongside them, like the hotel, the restaurant, and the event space, then help cover the ongoing operating costs through the taxes they generate. The housing is intended to help support some of that retail, but also to help attract potentially even more retail, to produce more revenue, to try and help cover more of the operational maintenance cost. That's the logic being applied here. That takes pressure off the city and taxpayers for future operating costs. And since the developer can move quickly, we could realistically see these facilities open maybe in 2027. These guys are ready to move fast. If you didn't go that route, it's going to create a lot more challenge. A lot of other people are not going to be incentivized to want to put a restaurant or hotel out there. Why is that? And I can tell you right now, if anyone has experience running a restaurant in a lake outside of town, it's me, and it's very difficult to do. If you're going to invest the money without incentives, you're going to want to be on 281 in the heart of Grand Island. You're not going to want to take a risk out on that side of town. And I can tell you, after having attended a lot of these tournaments at athletic complexes with one of our kids years ago, you can only eat so many hot dogs and popcorn before you want to go have a real meal at a restaurant across the street. I think those would get used a lot, and that's supporting infrastructure. This all ties together. So there's a reason why Woodsonia is asking for some support to build those commercial buildings. They're putting some of their capital at risk as well, and they're very incentivized to make sure that those things operate successful, which is in our benefit if we're going to get EAA and other sales tax out of that to help us pay these bills. That's a major benefit. And the worst case scenario is if we don't do anything and this gets bogged down and keeps getting delayed, eventually the state's going to say, you're not getting anything done with that. We want that money back, and then we lose everything, and no one gets anything. That would be up to about $100 million of lost opportunity. I can't imagine having to go through that. When you lay it out this way, there's really only one rational choice for Grand Island's future, and that's to stop delaying and approve this resolution so we can get things moving soon And the public has been asking us to get this done, and we need to follow through on that.
Mr. Conley.
Yes, Mitch Drew, I got to say, Conestoga Marketplace looks great out there. I'm going to support this tonight. One thing that I would ask is you just continue to work with city staff, do your best, negotiate. Personally, I'm a little disappointed. I still haven't found in this yet my top golf. So we talked about that. It's been a couple years, but maybe we can work on that. A couple years.
You know, I like to think that we are really good, but I don't discount the fact that maybe we're just lucky. We were exceedingly lucky when Woodsonia arrived and said, "We will take care of your zombie mall." Nobody else stepped forward. And during my years as mayor before Woodsonia arrived, I got an earful from the people of Grand Island about what are you going to do with the mall. We lucked out. But we were smart enough to see the opportunity. But we still lucked out. And I agree with Roger Bullington. What has happened with the Conestoga Mall is unusual and precedential considering what happens with most zombie malls. And then our great luck continued. The Nebraska legislature decided to cut its sales tax in half so that the city could use that 50% that it gave up to create a Good Life district. We lucked out. We didn't have much to do with that. It was a great fortuity for us. But our luck continued because Woodsonia stepped forward, saw the opportunity that meant for Grand Island, and Woodsonia did all of the legwork to file the application with the state of Nebraska Department of Economic Development and prove to the Department of Economic Development that we could have a transformational project right here in Grand Island. We lucked out again. I've had a lot of people come up to me and they'll say, "I don't like this part of Woodsonia's application," or "I don't like that part of Woodsonia's application." But I always remind them, all the parts fit together and you have to look at what the whole project is intended to do. It is intended to be a development that is a neighborhood, that is a community, that when it is fleshed out, has recreational opportunities, has commercial opportunities, and residential opportunities. So it doesn't work to start pulling legs out of the stool that all of those parts represent, because then the whole thing will just come crashing down. But I'm very pleased with our good luck. I know last year the legislature gave the Good Life District legislation a bit of a haircut, but they didn't repeal it. We lucked out there too. I think by approving this application, we show that we're wise enough to seize good luck when it is presented to us. And I, for one, appreciate all of the behind-the-scene works and all of the behind-the-scene hours and all of the behind-the-scene money that Woodsonia has sunk into this application and sunk into the planning. It has been a 2-year slog for them. I sometimes wondered why they didn't throw up their hands and say, "Phooey, who needs this?" But they didn't, and I'm very appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of them finding ways to help Grand Island. Thank you, sirs.
Please vote. Motion adopted.
The last thing on our agenda is ordinance 10,054, consideration of renaming U.S. Highway 30. Is there a motion to suspend the statutory rules regarding ordinances? Mr. Lanfear.
I move we suspend the statutory rules concerning ordinances.
Mr. Brown.
I second that motion.
Any discussion?
Please vote. Motion adopted.
Mr. Navity, please present.
Thank you. The ordinance before you this evening is renaming Highway 30 from where it ended at Old Highway 30 to Monitor Road. We're just extending the old Highway 30 moniker on that and changing those addresses to Old Highway 30. The new Highway 30 is in essentially the same alignment to the north. It doesn't work to have two roads running parallel to essentially parallel to one another on a grid when you try to put addresses on them and have them have the same name. So this is very similar to what was done when Old Highway 30 was created. We're just adding on to Old Highway 30. It will change their addresses. We are proposing to make this effective January 1 so that there's a nice firm date when that cutover begins. If you approve this evening, we will notify the residents and we will notify the post office of those changes.
Mr. Sheard.
Thank you. I move that we approve ordinance 10,054.
Mr. O'Neill.
I second the motion.
Any discussion?
Please vote. Motion adopted.
We have completed our agenda. Have a nice evening, everybody.